2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, I'm looking at the attendance right now. We have 8 of our 9 board members in here. So it is 6 o'clock. So I'm going to call this virtual meeting of the Newington Board of Education to order. The time now is 6 o'clock p.m. So as you are able, would you please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, you can all be seated, please. And if you would take a moment and just mute your microphones, but we are going to do the roll at this time. So I'm going to ask Ms. Craig to please call the roll.
Michael Branda.
Here.
Danielle Drozd. Here. Dr. Bruce Fletcher.
Here.
Beth Mankey Hutt-Wagner.
Here.
Richard LaVerriere.
Oh, here. Sorry, I was on mute. I'm here.
Amy Parati.
Here.
Sam Charma.
Here.
Jessica Weaver.
Here.
Anastasia Yap. I have everyone here except Miss Yap.
Okay, very good. So we will move to agenda item B, which is public participation on any matter related to board responsibilities. We limit your time to 3 minutes, and we ask you to try to be conscious of that. As you come on, we're going to ask you to state your name and the street on which you live. And just as a reminder, we don't necessarily answer questions that are posed to us at this time or engage in conversation, but we do attempt to get back to you in a very timely manner related to any questions or comments that you may have. So at this time, if there is anyone from the public that wishes to address us, you may do so by raising your hand. Okay, for some reason I can see Sarah Yiser there, but I don't. Okay, I see why. Okay, Miss Yiser.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Yep, my name is Sarah Yiser, and I'm from East Robbins Avenue. So first of all, thank you for last night's meeting. It was a long one, and I do appreciate what you guys do. I want to state that during the meeting, I received an email last night from a member basically saying not to waste my time being on. And I was strictly there to listen. So there should not be anything to hide, and I'm not going to apologize if my presence here is intimidating. So the governor has passed the buck on to you, the Board of Education, and it's up to you, not the Public Health Department. They can't make policies. You do. You were elected. I'm a parent and a special education teacher. I'm also someone who is immunocompromised. And with that being said, I do not rely on others to protect me. I protect myself. Masks need to be a parent choice. The CDC has already come out and said that masks don't work to control transmission. Kids are suffering from literacy development, social development, and mental health setbacks. And listening to the budget meeting last night confirms that. Other states have been without masks for months, and their infection rate has been the same or less than ours. And in fact, Connecticut was breaking records for infection, while Florida had one of the lowest infection rates in the country. Our leaders are continuously caught maskless while forcing our kids who go maskless all week to be muzzled in school. And this proves that it's not a health decision. Parents should be making this decision. And I want to touch quickly upon the ESSER funds again. I've heard a few times now that the new teacher or new positions filled with ESSER funds are temporary. So every district's requirements for tenure is different, and I don't know how long it takes in Newington for a teacher to reach tenure, but it is anywhere between like 2 and 4 years depending on the circumstance. So is it a new teacher? Is it someone with tenure and coming over to a new district? It changes, and it is all dependent on these circumstances. And if these positions were filled in 2020, 2021, there's a good chance that the teachers reach tenure before their ESSER funds expire. And those teachers will no longer be temporary. I was short and sweet tonight.
Thank you very much. Melissa Tulisano. Ms. Tulisano?
Not work. There we go. I'm sorry. It wasn't working for a second. I apologize. So I'm Melissa Tulisano. I live on 8th Street, and I am going to keep it short and sweet. I do appreciate listening to the budget meeting last night, though. I really appreciate you guys like laying all that out for us. It's educational. I really haven't listened to it previously, so I do appreciate the time that you spend to present it and make it available to the public. I just have I appreciate also the email that Dr. Brummett sent out regarding to all the Newington families regarding the mask mandate. But what I think should have been more explained in detail was what is actually happening with this legislation. And so what's being voted on tomorrow by the House and on Monday, I believe, by the Senate, is to extend Governor Lamont's executive orders, all 11 of them, which is included in there the ability for the SDE and the DPH to mandate masks in school. So they're taking their guidance and they're making that basically the ability, a law, making them to be able to mandate masks whenever they feel that it's necessary. So that's taking away the ability of the elected board that we elect you as officials to make decisions based on the education of our students, the well-being of our students. It's taking that away from you. So unless this legislation doesn't pass, that vote is going to go up to all of you. And so I just would urge you to think about the students, think about their phenome recognition, think about their speech development, think about their need for facial recognition and that affirmation from their teachers. And that we've been through this for 2 years now. And I really feel that it's time that we think about the actual social and emotional well-being of these children. And I don't believe that masks are the way to go. Again, thank you so much for all you guys are doing and allowing us to be a part of your meetings. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you very much. And I do want to encourage public participation, or people just sitting in and listening to the budget process. A lot of questions you have are going to be answered during this process. And we more than welcome you to stay here with us and to listen to the entire thing. Okay. I don't see any other hands raised for public participation at this time. So with that said, I'm going to move on to agenda item C, which is new business. And we're going to continue our review of the instructional programs. And Dr. Brummett, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Fletcher. Welcome, everybody. And if I didn't say it last night, I will say it tonight, that I really do appreciate the work my team has put into getting all this budget information gathered. As you'll see in a moment when I share a document that goes through all the questions that were posed last night and today that haven't already been answered. I did send some information out already. Really spent some serious time today looking at that. So I just want to thank my team. They're all on the line right now. Lou and Karen and Steve, Kristen, Wendy, Marlena. Who else is on the line? Please tell me if I forgot anybody, but everyone was really doing a lot of heavy lifting today to get questions answered. And thank you to the parents who commented this evening. And we will have some updates as soon as the legislature lets us know. The tenure issue isn't as impactful as you might think. We didn't hire most of these folks till 2021. And even if they are tenured and their positions are eliminated in 2 to 3 years' time, they can be if we do it in a proper fashion. So long story short, we're thinking along those lines, but hopefully we can come up with some other solutions there. But without further ado, I'd like to put forth a document that has been the collective efforts of everyone on the line this evening to answer some of the questions that the board posed last evening. And everyone asked some pretty, very detailed and important questions. So let me pull that document up and I'll display it. And pretty sure we were able to get answers to just about all of your questions. If we forgot any or the answers aren't clear for whatever reason, we will go ahead and follow up with you in a separate communication. So there were those questions last evening about how many students are able to enroll in the BioMed classes and how many cannot due to capacity. I'm going to pop that up and let Kristen respond to that with regard to the information that she got today from herself as well as Seth Korn.
Good evening, everybody. So the answer is not a simple one, so I'm just going to ask you to sit tight for a moment. When we think about students who are enrolled in the academy, at the middle school, that's really where academies start. We have 25 students in 8th grade and 25 students in 7th grade. So it would be a total of 50 students actually in Martin Kellogg. And we currently have 70 students at Newington High School enrolled in the academy. So again, there's an application and you become part of this program. I just want to remind the board, especially our new members here, that last year the academy was completely disrupted by COVID. Two things happened. At the middle level, we were not able to offer a lot of the biomedical theme classes for two reasons. One is it would require students being on school grounds for a longer amount of time and doing teamwork type of learning, which we know was really not possible given the restrictions we were given by the State Department for safety reasons. And then at the high school, we did not offer Medical Science 1 because the entire course is based upon career explorations in the medical field. So students work in what they call teams or pods, doing hands-on learning. So again, with no sharing of equipment and with students needing to be spaced apart, we couldn't run the course. The whole entire course is based on that premise. So this year, when you look at the number of students that are currently enrolled in Medical Science 1, that number is higher than normal. But the current number of students enrolled in Medical Science 2 is lower than normal because everybody got to take Medical Science 2, but now they're backfilling Med-Sci 1. Okay, so I just first wanted to explain those numbers that were up there with a little bit of the story that's behind it. So when we start looking at next year, we know we have these 70 students that are within the academy, but keep in mind that within the biomed classes, these are also elective. So students can choose to take them just for interest. They don't necessarily have to be an academy student. We're looking at adding Medical Science 4, and right now there are 26 students that are asking to take Medical Science 4. We expect that students wanted to take that because you need 2.5 credits total to get your sort of certification of being in the academy. That's the whole point. You need to have 2.5 credits in that track. Medical Science 4 is the EMT course. We spoke about that last night, and that is the culminating experience for students. So that already knocks out one section that Ms. Freese cannot teach because we want to make sure that that course is in there. So now when we try to think about populating the other courses, Med Science 1, 2, and 3, if the numbers are the same as we're showing here on the screen, we will not be able to offer all of those because Ms. Freese doesn't have enough time in her schedule. Teachers are contracted to teach 5 periods. And so most of these courses are half credit. So she can take on double that amount for first semester and second semester. Medical Science runs for the full year. So it's difficult for me to say this is exactly the number of students. We can make some predictions just based on sort of the numbers that we're seeing here.
All right. And I think the other thing I would add to that, Kristen, is because there was a request to add a science teacher next year, which would have freed up Ms. Fries to offer sections without having to divvy them up, because we could have added another person here. But with us not putting that forward due to the tight budget year, fewer sections will be offered in this academy.
And I would add to that, Dr. Brummett, thank you so much for the reminder that not only is it happening, but we have our senior class currently only needs 21 credits. Next year, all 4 of the classes, freshmen, sophomores, juniors, and seniors, will require 25 credits. When students get to their junior and senior year, the best part about it is they get to take electives and start exploring areas of interest. So just with the added requirements by the state for graduation, we will see an increase in numbers. That the plan's proposal for the additional staff was actually going to be part of the BioMed Academy, and the other part would go toward the science department, because we're seeing some of our science numbers above 24, which according to OSHA is a safety regulation. It's really tough to be running a science lab when we get beyond those numbers.
So safe to say our medical science program is very, very popular. Dr. Fletcher, I'm going to keep moving on unless you see any questions or my team points out any questions.
Okay,
There
that's good.
was-
Keep moving.
You got it.
We do have a question. A hand just came up.
Okay.
Ms. Drost?
Question, Ms. Freeman, the 25 credits, I know one of them is a state mandate for the health. I remember that from years ago that we had to add that. Why is it a state mandate that they need to have more credits, or is that a Newington thing?
It is a state mandate, and in fact, Ms. Rhodes, we originally had 25 credits in as a mandate for the current seniors and the current the current seniors and the kids that just graduated. I had to get that right. We changed that. We actually went back on that policy when COVID hit, because we knew if we reduced it back down to 21 for the kids that were still with us, we could have a reduced population and sort of manage everything better in the pandemic. And we had some seniors and juniors that took advantage of that and didn't carry a full course load, just took the number of courses they needed for graduation. But the 25 is a state mandate.
Thank you.
All righty.
Okay.
Question 4, or line 4, is pretty straightforward. We were asked to provide the total in grant offsets for this year. So it's $2.7 million. And as I mentioned last night during the per pupil cost presentation, that our title grants have gone up a bit due to our free and reduced lunch rates going up a bit. So this is another factor in our per pupil cost uptick. Line 5 is the IXL program, another straightforward answer. It does cost $39,150 for, as outlined here, grades 5 through 8, 1,350 students, and we've got components across several subject areas. Sometimes we buy this ahead, but this would be the annual cost. So, and that's a district-wide platform that gets kind of partialed out to all the levels. Last night, line 6, I did send out the plans proposal that outlines the Desmos software platform that has been piloted this year at the middle school. There was a question last evening, well, have we considered just sticking with the free program versus the, the pay version? And the answer to that is because it's a very different platform. The free version is a graphing calculator with some statistical analysis, but the digital product that we've been piloting is the illustrative math curriculum with the digital components. There's slides, activities, warm-ups, cool-downs. So they are very different, and that's what our kids have been experiencing this year. I've observed it myself. It's a very, very engaging platform. And I think as one of our board members mentioned last night, it might have been Ms. Yap, that we're trying to increase math achievement. So this program is one of many ways that we're trying to do that. Line 7 is total number of CTE offerings. There are 36, which does include the medical science and engineering. Currently, there are 92 sections running, and they comprise 32 different courses with 1,623 enrollments. I do have a tab here, but in an effort to be time efficient tonight, I wasn't going to go into all the details, but I will share this out with the board at the conclusion of tonight's board meeting for you to probe into some of the additional information. All right, so we had a pretty, question generally was how many certified staff do you have? We had how many teachers, how many interventionists, how many coaches, and who doesn't provide direct instruction. So the answer to that one's easy. Everyone provides some direct instruction to students, other than, I suppose, administrators, or even then, I will tell you, some of them sometimes do. Let me get into what that looks like. And again, I won't spend a lot of time on this, but board members will have access to this to, peruse at their leisure. But this is our current staffing as of today. And I believe all these positions are filled. But you can see it's broken down by school. I know our budget book is sometimes a little confusing when you have to look at a line and say, okay, what is school 10? What is school whatever? This breaks it down school by school. And it shows you how many positions we have at that school. Now, where you see a portion of a person, that might be that they teach two different subject areas. We do, because there was a social studies positions eliminated a few years ago. Some of our teachers are teaching social studies and English, in some cases, social studies, English, and math, or a combination thereof. So that's why you see those fractions. If someone is a 0.95, such as in the Aerospace Academy, they must spend part of their time somewhere else. And then you have some of our support staff at the high school, such as the Transition Academy. And actually, I will say, the Aerospace Academy, that staff must teach a different course or part of a course. And that we've included all staff on this, including nurses. I know that wasn't one of the asks, but we figured while we're at it, we will just put that out there. So again, we got John Wallace. I'm not going to go line by line, but you can see how many positions we have. Martin Kellogg. And then down on the second page here is by elementary school. And again, where you see a 0.8 or a 0.6, it means these folks travel between schools. Speech pathologists are often traveling between schools. We had some coaches eliminated a few years ago, so now we have to spread some of our coaches among the 4 elementaries. They split 2 schools each for some of those positions. But other than that, I think it's pretty self-explanatory. I know there's been questions about, what everyone does, especially the coaches. I don't know, Wendy, would you just kind of illuminate what our coaches do at the elementary and how they've become more pivotal since some administrative positions have been eliminated?
Sure. Good evening, everybody. Yes, that is true. Going back a few years when we originally had at the elementary level 4 instructional coaches, we reduced it by 2. So now they are half-time, one at 2 of the schools and the other at the other 2 schools. Also around that same time, my position, I formerly was the director of elementary education. And in the curriculum office, we had a director for elementary, one for middle, one for high school. In an effort to reduce administration, I was given the charge over a 2-year period to siphon off some of my responsibilities so that my position could be moved to a K-12 position versus focusing on elementary only. So the instructional coaches are the people who picked up a lot of those responsibilities. A nice thing about it and the vision that the former superintendent had is to kind of flip the model and do things kind of bottom up and not so much top down, so that it was people like living in the building that were overseeing things like professional learning. So that was I still have my hand in that and coordinating that across the schools, but we rely heavily on the coaches to oversee the professional learning system in their building. The major part of their work is working directly with staff. They attend a lot of the PLC meetings that we talked earlier about and support teachers in the research they're doing. And another piece is that embedded professional learning. So when teachers are learning a new curriculum, learning new strategies, they are going in and modeling that. We rely heavy on them to help out our new teachers. So, this year we have a number of new teachers at the elementary level. So they're doing we call them coaching cycles. They're in those classrooms on a regular basis, supporting teachers as they learn it. But at any time, any teacher can access the coach to just say, I'm struggling with this aspect or a particular group of students or even one student, and the coach partners with that person to work on that problem or practice with them and monitor throughout. So that their responsibilities, some of what I mentioned is what the coaches have always done. Some of it was they didn't always oversee so much of the professional learning system as they do now. And certainly when we think about school improvement efforts and that kind of thing, they're playing a big role in running those systems as well. And as a result of that, when Pamela Maraca left the curriculum office, we did not replace her administrative position. We went down an administrative position. So our office now is me and Kristen doing it. So that was one of the reasons we had to move some of the things out of our office to go from 3 people to 2.
Very good. And if you were to talk to any number of teachers in the district, most would say my coaches are extremely valuable. Our more seasoned teachers may have less interactions with coaches because they have that upper level of confidence. But I can tell you, having attended a lot of PLC meetings this year, the coaches are intimately involved. They are not primarily working with kids, but they absolutely would take intervention groups as needed. And I will tell you, because of our sub shortage this year, many of them have had to actually cover classes, although in a normal year, that is not as common. But it's not unheard of, even on a normal year, but certainly more so this year. And then
if I could just add to that, Dr. Brummett,
yes.
A big piece of that over the last 2 years that has fallen on the coaches is, particularly as you go up in the grades, that supporting our students has been, just pivotal. And they've really been adding that lens to how do we fill some of these gaps? Because sometimes it's like maybe you've had one student in your room where you're meeting these needs, and now we have multiple, just varying needs. So they're really playing a really big role in helping teachers navigate all that, figuring out how to structure the day to be able to do that. And they do a lot of gathering resources behind the scenes that takes a load off the teachers of having to do that kind of work as well.
So bottom line is, if any of them were to go away, the workload would fall basically back down to the teachers. And on this page, this is our administrative team, as well as district-wide staff. We do have staff that are considered district-wide. Here's our administrative team, and this is both, my apologies. This is both our instructional and some of our non-instructional staff. So toward the top is all of our instructional administrators, and then down, starting with the Director of Residency and Security, those are our non-instructional administrators. So that is kind of staffing 101. So let me get back to this.
And Dr. Brummett, while you're moving back there, it's Steve Farisi. I'd just also like to share, we did include the staff allocation report as well in this response that was presented in December to the Board of Education, and it always shows where we were last year with staffing and where we are this year with staffing. So that's just another way to look at the information and provides that level of detail that some might want. But that was presented to the board as well in mid-December.
Excellent. So that's linked here for board reference if they want to peruse that again on their own time. All right. And so that answers kind of 9, 10, and 11. Now we're on 12. This question was posed relative to any money left over at the end of the year, which I did share at my original budget presentation last week. And then how does that work? Where does the money go? And if it goes back to the town, does the Board of Ed get any type of credit? So just so for the benefit of our new board members, if there is any money left at the end of the year, realized savings, in other words, your budget's a snapshot in time, you get to the end of the year, and for whatever reason, you didn't expend all your resources. And there's a variety of reasons why that happens, because you take a budget, it's it's an educated guess, but you're not always correct. And certainly with COVID, our budgets we had more budget money than we needed because when we shut down or had less activities happening at school, there was fewer resources used. Nevertheless, when at the end of the year, the finance subcommittee would meet, and myself and Lou would share with that committee what money, if any, is left over. Then I would submit to that committee some of my thoughts on how that money could be utilized. And then that finance committee kind of chews on that and brings that back to the full board. Since I've been here the last 2 years, we have had some money to return to the town. So in 2020, we returned $1.5 million. And in 2021, we returned $500,000. Once it goes back to the town, we do not have any more recourse at that point. And it does have to be, we have to expend all of our resources or return it to the town no later than June 30th. So once June 30th comes, by ordinance or statute, whatever the case might be, it goes back to the town. The town, I believe, puts it in a general fund, and then it's no longer ours at all. There's no credit. There's no, any type of promissory note for the following year. It's back to the town. I've prided myself on when the board reaches the end of the year and we have some realized savings, we will look at that to see if there are things that we still need or some unexpected things that come up. But I also feel that whatever money we can send back to the town is a good faith gesture that, we're not using all this. We budgeted carefully. We budgeted wisely. We didn't spend lavishly. We send it back to the town. And I've done that every year I've been here. I doubt that'll happen this year because we had a 0% budget, and we'll be lucky if we can just not use all of the non-lapsing fund. But so that is kind of what happens to money that is not expended at the end of the budget year.
Okay, we do have a question from Ms. Droz.
Absolutely.
So when we have money left over, the realized savings, I assume that the $1.5 million was COVID, right? I know
Yes.
you were paying for like lots of different stuff. I understand that. But so last year, what caused the savings? Like what did we budget for that came in lower?
I'll put my 2 cents in and then I'll turn it to Lou. But, don't forget at the beginning of the school year last year, we had hybrid, and that went till October for elementary, till I believe January for high school, middle and high, or thereabouts. So busing costs were down a little bit. I believe that the weather was a bit warm and unseasonably warm during the winter, so we had some energy savings. Lou, can you chime in with any other pieces of information there?
With the busing was a pretty substantial element because it also tied in all of the athletics that weren't happening because of cancellations. A lot of the clubs did not have the same mobility as they had before for their activities as well as field trips. So there was a lot of hunkering down that was going on where there was lots of places where a little bit of money wasn't spent. We still had numerous difficulties filling slots because people were apprehensive about coming back to work. So our staffing costs were down across the board because of that, really in the hourly staff areas. The buildings being utilized less, our utilities were favorable from that standpoint compared to a year where we're full in running everything to maximum time utilization like we have in prior years. I'm trying to, you could ripple through everything, repairs were down because not as much activity in the building. So less things were falling, where there was damage or just maintenance needs because everything was just not at the same pace as it had been in the prior years. So I couldn't really point to one dramatic item other than it was everywhere across the whole, all the different programs within the budget.
All right. So I'm just making a correction here. So thank you very much, Lou. Does that answer your question, Ms. Drozd?
Yep, thank you. I got
Okay.
lots of notes and my pen died in the middle of it.
Oh, no. Well, when you have them ready, just let Dr. Fletcher know.
Okay,
Money
Mr.
was-
Charma has a question.
Absolutely.
Maureen, quick question. So on June 30th, if you have money left over, it goes back to town. Is that because of a state statute? Is that because of a town ordinance? I mean, what needs to change so we can stop that, or
Lou, I believe that's a state statute, correct?
Well, the basic structure of the obligations of a fiscal year are have to be settled up for auditing purposes and all of the state reporting. Maybe 10 years ago, they started with the Nonlapsing Fund legislation, where originally it was at 1%, and then moving to 2% if your town consented to it. Right now in Weathersfield, we're at the 1% maximum per year to put into the fund, but there is no cap that would ever be part of it. Our particular MOU on that subject allows for those dollars to be spent both on operating expenses as well as capital expenses. Many of the communities around who do have the non-lapsing fund do basically restrict it to the capital needs of the operation, because when budgets a budget needs to be reconciled and closing the gaps, that could be the first place that always comes up in discussion. So it appeared the legislation was more for being able to stretch the resources over multiple years and be able to allow districts a bit more flexibility to achieve more of their objectives, rather than just being a direct tool to reconcile and balance any one year's budget.
Thank you very much, Lou. And we're fortunate to have the non-lapsing here. About a year or so ago, we did ask if it could be increased to 2%. I believe it was the year we had that significant savings, but the town was not amenable to that. But nevertheless, the 1% at least is an opportunity to set aside monies, which, as you know, in this year has really kept us afloat. The next line has to do with the money that we get. And this is a wide range of answers, but for pre-K, because of an arrangement we've made with the town, we are able to keep that money and apply it to the operating budget for preschool expenditures, typically teachers. The open choice, there's two pots there. The open choice regular ed tuition is applied to our operating budget, so it does reduce our ask, but the special ed tuition must be applied. The special ed tuition reimbursement must be applied to the town or the board CIP rather. The facilities rental fees does go to the CIP account, much like the special ed reimbursements. And the other questions that were asked about ESL and citizenship classes, some of those are free of charge, but the ones that are not, we have out-of-town people that pay us $100, with the exception of West Hartford, because we have an agreement with them. So we have one thing they have and vice versa. So we kind of swap out opportunities there. Any funds that we get from enrichment courses, the infamous basket weaving, or any test fees or GED testing is deposited into the adult education account. And we did provide, I've linked here in the document, my internet's acting funky again tonight, but in this document is the capital plan, and that will show you what we got for tuition receipts last year, or all receipts last year, and then it projects out in the coming years. So the board can click on this link once I make sure it's active and go to where that projection is of all the receipts. Now, what do we do to kind of increase our open choice in pre-K? We do a variety of things. We advertise. Let me get to open choice first. Open choice, we have gone up significantly in recent years from 2 to 3%. That has, on the positive side, increased the regular ed tuition we get. And it's even gone from a 4,000 per student to 6,000 because of that next level of benefit. The challenge is that about 30% of those students are special ed. So that has increased our special ed expenditures. And while we get that money back, it goes to the town CIP. So that does jack up our per pupil cost to a certain degree. PreK enrollment, we advertise in the paper. It's on our website. It's talked about at all of our schools. We have screening opportunities for families where they can get to know our programs, parent notices, press releases. So that all is something that we do. Pre-K enrollment is down somewhat because of the pandemic. I think parents whose children are not of a mandatory school age, some of them have waited because of the pandemic. I anticipate enrollment will start going up. In fact, I know it will next year. I've already seen the projections, and we're looking busier already. Building usage, again, you can access that tuition, those receipts in the capital plan. But I will say that for the last year and a half, we've basically been at zero because we didn't allow our buildings to be used much at all last year, and certainly March through June of 2020. We are pretty much a couple months into the school year. We decided to loosen up our building usage, and we're back to seeing some pretty significant upticks there. So I think Lou did project a pretty normal year in building usage revenues. So that is what we're doing there. What are the top 3 departments, and where's the most money allocated? What are the 3 highest, etc.? So we provided you with special ed being one of our top spenders at $8.5 million. And this is district-wide, by the way. This is like in totality, how much do we spend or did we spend on special ed? So about $8.5 million in 18-19. Math was about $4 million. English language arts, a little under $4 million. Reading about $3.7 million. And then moving forward to 2019-20, you see it's going up a little bit, 9.1, though not a big increase. Math, well, I'm not going to read it to the board, but these are the expenditures in those areas over the last 3 years, as questioned by a board member.
We have a question.
Okay,
from Ms.
right on,
Weaver.
yeah.
Yeah, sorry, just going back to the building rental use fee. I know that we had voted, this last board, we had voted to temporarily lower the cost because we know a lot of people were unemployed. We knew that, local churches and businesses were going through a lot of hardship. So I know we temporarily said, hey, we're going to either waive or lower the fee. Had that gone back into effect in terms of our regular fees, and if we're revisiting that?
Lou, I believe we froze the fees, but I'll let you comment.
Yes, the fees were frozen. We bring that back every year for the board to consider in June or in May for what it'll be for the following year. So that'll be up for discussion in a couple months.
In a couple months, that's what I thought. Okay, cool. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Ms. Parati has a question.
Thank you. Can you just clarify? I think you said that the open choice enrollment goes into our operating budget, so that'll offset what we're talking about here. But the special ed portion of open choice goes into the town CIP, which is like where like our buses, like that.
It goes into the board CIP, so that for next year's budget, that is where we put all of our technology expenditures.
Okay.
And I don't have that document right in front of me, but it would, be things that we listed in that document. Lou, do you recall what else is in there besides the technology? That was like probably about 800,000 of it.
Yeah, we have about 15 different items that we blend to put together a plan each and every year. Besides the technology, there's buses that we could put in, or general vehicles for the district. We need a maintenance vehicle or a truck for some purpose. We do security improvements around the district through HVAC work, carpeting, flooring, painting, furniture, repairs and improvements to the athletic fields, door work around the district, parking lots, repaving, sidewalks, anything you can think of that were more smaller scale projects where we can accomplish them in a reasonable time frame, to work within the resources we have.
Okay, thank you. I guess I'm just a little confused why that is, and I'm sure there was a reason for it in our agreement somewhere, but just wondering because I was just gonna say we're spending a lot of money in special education, so for those kids that are coming in, they're paying us for it, but we're not able to offset it in our budget.
Right.
Well, we get the benefit in the following year.
Yeah, we get
it's 1 year delayed. And the biggest reason is there's no guarantee when those funds will show up to the district. So you can't count on it as an offset in the operating budget necessarily, unless you had some sophisticated MOU arrangement with the town that if that big check doesn't show up on the last workday in June, the board members are protected from any potential deficit spending situations that come out. So the board CIP account vehicle that was developed 40 years ago, maybe longer, has served these purposes very well for us. So it's not a problem. It's just different is really the only way to look at it.
And I will say that in my former district, we did apply it to the operating, and our neighbors, that whole per pupil comparison that was discussed last night, our neighbors, Weathersfield, Rocky Hill, apply it to the operating budget. It is a feasible thing to do. But in our case, that's frankly seed money for our CIP. And because we've gotten very low town CIP allocations over the years, that really has been helpful. But there's tugs and pulls to it. There's pluses and minuses. So if I could move along to AP.
We have one more question,
of course.
Mr. Charma. I'm sorry.
Hi, Lou and Maureen. Just a quick question. So the revenues that the school gets from special ed goes into CIP. Is that because of a state statute? Is that because of the way it's set up in our town?
It's an ordinance in Newington where there's specific revenue elements that are directed to go there, and it's not at our discretion.
So that revenue goes into the CIP, and then you can use it in that year. It sits in the CIP, and then it gets allocated next year.
Correct.
So it's revenue that the school earned, but then you cannot really use it.
Right, where you typically try to use it within the next year.
And that's because of whatever the town. It's a town ordinance. Right. Okay.
Correct. I will say, Mr. Charma, that we did work with the town about 1.5 years ago to tweak that to allow PreK Tuition.
Right.
Previously went to town CIP to be applied to the board operating budget. So that was an agreement we reached. Just so you know, we have made some tweaks to that, but it does take town council approval to do so.
And you mentioned like some of the school districts are doing that, right? It goes
right. And again, in those towns, their ordinances must be different, or perhaps they've made these arrangements as well. But we would just have to do any changes here would have to be thoughtfully discussed, and then obviously we would have to get approval from our town counterparts.
Of course,
you would also need a whole harmless agreement, because that check that pays those bills happens sometime near the end of June. And if that check doesn't come in until July 1st, you have a problem with your finances if you've overspent.
Right.
Because that money wasn't here on June 30th. So you need a arrangement with the town that's formalized where that risk is taken away from the board members.
Right.
Correct.
Thank you.
All right. So our very talented secondary curriculum director, Ms. Freeman, I'm going to turn it to her so she can briefly talk about AP. There was tons of questions there. We don't have every answer, but I think her work with Seth Korn today, she got us quite a bit. Take it away, Kristen.
We currently have 21 AP courses to offer students, 43 honors courses. There are no fees whatsoever to take an AP course, but there is a fee to take the AP exam, which is $100 currently. The fee is paid by the student, and for any students who are on free and reduced lunch, the district does support those students. That's also covered through the State Department statutes as well, that we support those students with those fees. I feel very confident in saying that if there were ever a student that was challenged and their family was challenged in paying for the fee, we would be paying for them. And that would be one time that I'm very confident speaking for Dr. Brummett. We just make that happen for our students.
Definitely.
There were a lot of questions looking at the scores for AP. And if I showed that to you, it's going to get much smaller and very colorful, but it is a tab that's on here. One of the things that I want to note that when you get this document and you start looking at the AP scores, it's really important to note that some of the courses are dual enrollment of AP and ECE. So for many of our students who are going to UConn or going to schools which are going to accept UConn credit, and that is 87% of higher institutions, most students have no incentive to take the AP exam if they can also get the ECE credit. There's really no point to study for an AP exam if they can get the credit and transfer it to the college of their choice, or to UConn if that's where they're choosing to go to. With that said, we still do have students that take the AP exam, and you'll be able to see the distribution of scores over the past several years in one of the tabs that is titled AP. We were not able to get our enrollment for AP classes compared to other districts because I cannot access enrollment of other districts. That's just impossible to do. To speak to the encouragement of enrollment, there's a couple of things that happen. First of all, I have to give credit to our teachers who are always encouraging students to take the most challenging course possible that they can. We also have an open enrollment policy. That means that we do not have prerequisites for AP classes. So we do not deny access to an AP class or an ECE class for that matter for any prior level that the student took. There is one exception to that, and it's AP chemistry, but that's only because it is a content issue. It's not an academic level issue. So we do try to make that access as equitable as possible. We were actually ahead of some legislation that just came out that now says that schools cannot set up tracks for students and deny students access to higher level courses, especially in their junior and senior year, based on decisions that they made, say, when they were in 8th grade and 9th grade. You can, anybody who has school-age children know that for a lot of our students, a really big change happens between their freshman and sophomore years, and they end up making different decisions. So we want to make sure that we have as much access as possible for all of our students to those higher level courses. The last question that was in here talked about ranking. And I didn't really know what was meant by ranking. The State Department doesn't rank schools, for example. There is a ranking of schools by the U.S. News and report, and you know, you'd have to decide, is that something that's reputable or not? So that was just got to be a little bit challenging to answer. Mr. Korn did link in some information for the U.S. News and World Report ranking criteria that they use.
Thank you very much, Ms. Freeman. So there are plenty of links in there for board members to kind of get more details as they see fit.
Okay, I think we have a question from Ms. Weaver.
Sure.
Thank you. Well, one, just want to say the ECE saved my life. I had my GPA in college because ECE also, if you go to UConn, grade transfers, not just that. So you can start off with a 4.0 and 23 credits if you want. So I'm a big supporter of that. I guess my question too, because I know since between when I went and my sister went, they added more AP courses. In terms of where we're at right now, in where we are, is there plans to add any more? And in terms of our budget this year or next year, so on and so forth.
So right now we are hoping to add 2 new ECE courses that will live in the CTE department. Those are, I spoke to those last night. Those would be sort of the seedlings for a teacher prep academy. The courses are called If You Love It, Teach It. And the other course is Contemporary Social Issues in Sports. We have some classes that we're always trying to add on the ECE component. Because the other way that we could go is to turn all of them into ECE courses and not have the AP component. But then we want to make sure that our students that are going off to the Yales and the Harvards, they do have the AP experience and they can test for that exam and also pass it. So for example, Spanish 4, we just added that as an ECE course. It used to only live as an AP course. We have been trying to get our AP stats course also have an ECE equivalency to it. The challenge becomes in the very specific coursework that UConn requires for classes to be ECE, and the math classes tend to be the tightest with respect to those requirements.
Perfect, thank you. And just one follow-up. I know that the ECE courses also have a cost to them, like a cost component, if I'm correct.
Yep.
And
so
that kind of the AP policy would apply there as well.
Yeah, the fee is, I want to say it's a couple $100. I would have to go back.
It was like
and
$125,
look.
I think, when I went. I'm not sure.
Yeah, compared to the cost of 3 credits at UConn, it is a bargain. I can say that. And I'm sorry, Ms. Weaver, I wanted to add too that we are adding AP Physics B next year, and the following year we want to add AP Physics C. So all of those letters just refer to physics that is based either in algebra or in calculus, and those have ECE offerings, and so we're looking to expand that in science.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Ms. Freeman. All right, we did get a question from a board member about dollars spent on each kind of categorization of administrative, certified, non-certified maintenance. So Mr. Jacomowitz prepared that analysis for us. Am I on the right page, Mr. Jacomowitz?
No, you need to go to the other one.
All right. Am I still on the wrong one or the right one?
That's the wrong one. Sheet 2 is what you want.
There it is.
That's the one.
So just in a nutshell, this is the breakdown of the percent of our overall budget with regard to certified staff, which obviously makes up the bulk of it. That's our teachers and, people that certified speech pathologists, psychologists, that entire group. Non-certified folks, the tutorial staff makes up about 1.3 million or 1.8%. Overall percent of the budget is here. Certified administrators, about 3.9. They make up 5.3% or 5.6% of the overall budget. And then all other non-certified staff, and that refers to secretaries, custodians, bus drivers, all of those folks that are not included in some of the categories above, they make up about 14.3% of the budget. So as you can see, the total allocation for salaries is the biggest component of our budget. It's 65% of the total budget. And if you look at our total budgets during these years, you can see it hovered between 65 and 64%. I don't know if there's anything you'd like to add, Mr. Jacomowitz.
Yeah, well, there's 4 years here. It's the last 3 completed years, starting with the 18-19 year, which was the last year before the pandemic started. And then we had the 2019-2020 year where school was interrupted in the middle of March and stopped at that point. And last year with a, easing back in to as close to full academics as possible. So we generated some larger unused monies by the end of the year. And this identifies the directives that we gave the town as far as between money going to the non-lapsing fund, money being returned on the state agency placement excess cost grant, and the general surplus declaration that was done for the last few years. I also have the enrollment count for just in district students for comparison. Wasn't exactly sure what statistic was desirable for per pupil spending, because if you're looking for it on a payroll basis or just the certified staff, typically that number is just calculated as an aggregate of the kitchen sink of school operations divided by the number of kids. So I didn't go into any continuing just calculations here, but I provided the enrollment number for those years for our in-district kids.
Thank you, Mr. Giacomo.
I'm sorry?
I'm sorry, I thought you were done. Go ahead.
Just one other thing. The left-hand column was the actual starting budget for each year. The right-hand column of dollars is how it actually ended up at the end of the year. So it shows the variation and just, some of the things that happen. I put a couple banner notes about, major things associated with that year, so everybody could, get a sense of the continuity year after year.
And I was just going to note that pretty consistently across all these years, the staff across all categories accounts for about 65% of the budget, which is pretty typical, I believe, for probably our state and probably a lot of the nation, that your salaries are the biggest chunk of your budget.
Right. Can I make one more point, Maureen? If
Sure.
you would scroll down on the sheet
Gotta
2.
go back to sheet 2 again. Okay.
21-22 to the last year for 21-22. Yeah. Right. I have a note there out of the blue banner that the $2 million of resources from the non-lapsing fund are subsidizing a substantial portion of your payroll expenses this year. If you look at the budget just for certified teaching staff at $31 million, that's only at 41.7% this year, where it was up 43-44% in prior years. The reason for that decline is $2 million of teaching salaries are going to be picked up by the non-lapsing fund this year. Okay.
All right. So that's the buckets that were referred to in that question. Let me get back. I believe that covers all of the questions that were posed under, but again, I will send this out. I'm sorry, no, that is not true. We had one last question. What is the number of students denied for elective classes? And that is, I believe Kristen Freeman did some 11th hour heroic work for us, and I will let her try to explain it.
Yeah, and I wish that I had a really clean explanation to this. So, Dr. Brennan, if you're going to share a tab, if you could click on the one that says elective requests denied. There we go. Okay. So the best that we can do with PowerSchool in a very short amount of time is we can pull per school year. So you can see that on the left. And then we can ask PowerSchool to tell us what percentage of the core requests were fulfilled. So a core would be science, social studies, math, English, and world language. They don't run it by percent satisfied for non-core, but they do give you a percent request satisfied overall. So that's going to give you on the right-hand side. So this is what this means. I'm going to go all the way down to our most recent year, the current year we're in is 21-22. Students request their courses actually right now. Of all of those requests, we could fulfill 82% of them for any course on the core. Science, language, math, world language, and one more that I'm forgetting.
Science, math, world language, humanities, social studies?
Social studies, probably. In the other column, 91% of all of the requests overall, we were able to fulfill. So that's the most that we can get in terms of knowing exactly how many kids were able to get the courses they want or not.
All right. So hopefully that is responsive to the question about getting students into elective courses. And I'm going to segue back to the screen.
All right, Ms. Weaver has a question.
Sorry, just to clarify, that's like the request in PowerSchool initially. And I just can recall, like, I would request some classes. I mean, it's a little different in college when you get to college level and you just kind of, sometimes I have to throw everything at the wall and see what I get into, but it's just the request through PowerSchool. Is that correct?
Yes, we've transitioned to students requesting their courses through PowerSchool.
Okay.
And those are the primary requests, because for many elective courses, students can say, this is my first choice. If I don't get in, then try to put me into this course.
Then for like those who switch in and out, I know students that sometimes it's not a good fit, so they the request versus that. I don't know if we have tracking of like how many students switch out of their courses and switch into others. I feel like that would be impossible to track.
I think it would be very challenging to track. I do know that there is, you know, we have issues sometimes when we go and we schedule students according to the master schedule. And then if we find that there is maybe even a handful of students that find that maybe AP US history is maybe more challenging than really what they're ready for, what they want to sign up for. And then those students end up in college prep US history. So sometimes we see the number shrink in AP and we see the college prep courses increase. And it's always very challenging to predict how those numbers are going to change.
Understood. Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Strohs.
I have a question. It's not really about this, but it is. So the ESSER money that is coming in, we have one more year of it or two. Where does that, two more, where does that show up in the budget? Like, does that go into our operating budget? Does that go into our CIP? When will we see that? How is that reflected in the budget?
Well, I believe on one of the Q&As, we listed it's 2.1 million in grant funds, but I'll make sure that Lou, is there anything else you want to add to that, Lou?
Sure. Okay. In the earlier, I believe it was question number 4, it said we have offsets tied to the grants for 2,745,000. That's basically a 50-50 split between what they call entitlement grants, which are Title I, Title II, which reoccur every year. And those standards, there will be some allotment we'll get from the how the grant is awarded and calculated every year. The other 50% is realistically the two big ones are the ESSER II and the ESSER III grant. So it's about $1.4 million for the two ESSER grants and $1,375,000 or $1,350,000 for the entitlement grants. So the ESSER II grant expires at the end of the 2023 year, of which there is about $450,000 to $1,000 tied into that for subsidizing staffing costs. In the ESSER III grant has $850,000 or so tied into it, which goes 2 more years after this year. So it gets stepped down where there's a partial withdrawal of grant funds at the end of next year, and then a more substantial withdrawal of funds at the end of the 23-24 year. Those are embedded as offsets into our salary plan for all those dollars. So our salary plan would be $2,745,000 higher than what's in the budget book right now if we did not.
The ESSER is represented the same as the Title I. So if a teacher is paid through the Title I grants, like last night there was something like a teacher made $1,000 a year. I know that's what we feel like we make, but I know that's not realistic. So we said that they got paid by the Title I funds or grants. So that ESSER funds, so if a teacher, if their salary says $50,000, that could be offset because of the ESSER grant also?
Correct. As long as we meet the criteria of the grant where it's a allowable charge to the grant, we can do that. Okay, really, the only real substantial restriction is what they call when you supplant rather than supplement your budget, where you're trying to use the grant money to instead of funding it yourself. So if you funded these positions continually And then, while I have ESSER money, I'll just, charge my regular positions over to ESSER. That's not really allowable. There's like 15 or so categories of expenditures that are allowable under the plans.
Same with title money. Some of them are restricted to only being used at title eligible schools.
Right.
So, but yes, they're all, for lack of a better word, baked into offsets within the largely salaries, in some cases supplies, depending on the parameters of the grant. All right. Before we move on to getting back to our budget book analysis, I wanted to see if any of board members have questions relative to the early retirement incentive plan. We would like to roll that out tomorrow so that our teachers can start reviewing it, and hopefully we'll get some takers, which could have an impact on our budget deliberations going forward. So Mr. Freese stands ready to, I know we did send that out last night, and it's rather dense, but we did go over it a bit last night. All right. Very good. Well, cross our fingers that we get some realized savings from the ERIT plan. Mr. Freese will disseminate it tomorrow through his channels, and we'll see where the road takes us. Am I okay, Dr. Fletcher, to head into the budget books?
Let's move into it.
Let's do it. All righty. Let me get to my handy dandy list. Okay, so we are now ready to move into the wonderful world of special education, nursing, and psychology services. So I will turn it over to Marlena Giulioso, our special ed director.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome back to night 2. Good for you guys for hanging in there last night. I was right there along with you. It was a long night. This will be a pretty quick presentation, but special ed is special ed. So we tend to have the same expenditures year after year. They tend to go up a little bit. So we'll talk a little bit about that. We're going to be looking at, I don't have the budget book home with me, but I believe it's the purple tab.
Yes, it is.
All right, perfect. I'll give you all a minute to get there.
Second purple tab.
All right, perfect. So I will direct you to the left-hand pages, and our major goals have really remained consistent over the years. Our program description has altered slightly as our numbers have increased and our students' needs have changed. Most importantly, we are able to develop and implement resources and programs on a continuum by employing special education teachers, PTs, which are physical therapists, OTs, occupational therapists, CODAs, which are certified occupational therapist aides, BCBAs, which are board certified behavior analysts, and then of course all the related services and our SLPs, psych, social work, and nursing. They fall under their own category, so we'll talk about them a little bit later. Our staff actively participates in PPTs, SRBI teams. They work on all of our programs and development for students' IEP programs so that we're meeting most of our kids' needs right within our district. That is always our goal, is to utilize our resources to the maximum so that we are keeping our kids in district. Program improvements and changes include the addition of registered behavior technicians who are highly skilled paraprofessionals. And their addition to our staff has been amazing. When we see our overall turnover for paraprofessionals, we do not see the same turnover with our RBTs. We also continue to fund effective school solutions at Newington High School. We were able to add clinicians at Martin Kellogg and John Wallace. And our program needs overall focus around our students' needs that continuously change. So we have to continuously watch our kids, do a lot of data collection, really see if there is a need in a certain area. And right now we're really seeing the area be that mental health, and putting our resources and materials into those areas again, hopefully to keep our outplacement costs down. All right, so we're ready to look at the budget. So as you can see, there's slight increases kind of across the board. And really those increases reflect for our purchase services is really around training and PD. We are working very diligently to keep up with all of the state mandates with the dyslexia mandates that are coming through, and our teachers are getting trained in Gillingham and Wilson. Not inexpensive, but in the long run will ultimately benefit our students, and our teachers are willing to go through a very intensive training. So kudos to them for signing on for that. Our purchase services looks like it is about the same, slight decrease. Our other purchase services, 500, really we're looking at that decreasing our level of outplacement by employing some short-term consultants and professionals that we can bring into our district to do some in-house training, kind of the train the trainer model. So we're always looking to capitalize on, making ourselves be the best that we can be so that we can meet our students' needs. We've also had a slight increase. We talked a little bit about staffing, not being able to have those paraprofessionals that we need to implement our IEPs. So we've had to go to outside agencies for staffing, and that is also reflected in this line item of the budget. Our supplies budget, as you can see, is a lot higher. The supplies are really, last year we were able to, because again of some of the cost savings, we were able to purchase many of the supplies through buy-aheads and with the grant funds that we had left over. So this year, if you look at the bulk of the supplies, it really is in the area of testing protocols. We had many students who were not tested during COVID. Then last year we had to do a ton of testing because we had to make up for the testing that wasn't done. So now we really are 1 year behind. So now we're in the year next year that we have to kind of replenish all of those testing protocols. So what you'll see in most of those line items will be around testing protocols, but of course there are always incentive reinforcers and all those kinds of smaller items that we do need for students to be able to carry out their programs. And of course, assistive technology and software for them to be able to access their education with their IEPs. And then lastly is our other expenses. And again, that has actually gone down just a little bit. Any questions?
Okay, before I go to Ms. Yop, I would like to ask you a question.
Sure.
What is the average cost now for outplacing one student?
It could be about between $80,000 to $100,000 per student.
Okay.
We have students who are outplaced at $200,000.
Right. It does vary, I know, but the average is about $80,000 to $90,000 for one student.
Correct. And
Okay,
that,
and so
go ahead.
I understand that we're trying to do everything we can to keep those students in district
Correct.
by building the staff here for that.
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Yop?
So this my question is for Marlena. What outside agencies are you using for staffing?
I believe we have gone to PreK and Delta T, I believe, for some paraprofessionals. I know that over the summer we used Maxim for SLPs. So we've, reached out to, we have a couple of people within Newington actually who have private practices. We've tapped into their services, which has been nice to be able to go right into our own community. But those would be who we, the main people that we have reached out to.
Okay, and I have one other question. So when you're using outside agencies, when you're using outside agencies, are you looking for RBTs, SLPs, physical therapists, like all of them, or is it just one specific?
Usually it's paraprofessionals, and for short term, like if we have a staff going out on maternity leave, ESY services, something that we can't cover internally that is a need, that would be the only time we're reaching out to an outside agency.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Okay, Ms. Hutwagner.
Thank you. Just wanted to ask down at the bottom of the page under media and library materials. I noticed it. I don't think anything was appropriated last year. And I just want to make sure I'm reading this right. And this year it's about 15,000-ish. So I just wanted to see what types of media and library materials are used. Thank you.
Sure. We're looking at increasing our OG, Wilson, and I think Spire is the third program that we're looking at. So we're looking for all types of leveled books and readers to go along with those programs.
And OG is Orton Gillingham, Marlena.
Thank you. Sorry. My world of acronyms.
Some of our callers may know this, some may not. All right.
Well, it looks like we don't have any more questions. Oh, we have Miss Weaver.
Thank you. Just a quick question about, obviously I see like about a 34,000 increase in tuition. Is that due to enrollment or obviously the varying costs? What are we anticipating? Or
so the tuition line itself was 34,000.
No. It's
an increase.
4 million, and that's just an increase.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry. Yes, so that's, we always have to budget for. We never know who's going to move into town. We had one family who moved in, who the student was residentially placed. There is nothing we can do about that. If they come in with that level of services, then we have to implement that. So it's always safer for us to budget and have those funds available than to not budget and then find ourselves saying, how are we going to meet this need? So there's always a certain level of what we look at what we have and then budget forward what we think might be Dr. Brumman said it best. It's a snapshot to the best that we think that we can budget moving forward. We look at what we've happened to us in the past. And so we just want to make sure that we've got that covered.
Absolutely understand. And I can see, given our trends, I don't know if you anticipate, given the various variables that we have going on and how you can't predict it necessarily, but if you anticipate that number to continue to increase at the pace we're at right now.
So we're hoping that we're going to stabilize with, COVID being over, and by building the programs that we have. Because one of the things that will happen also is that if a student moves into town and has an IEP because the previous town was not able to meet their needs, if we can prove that we can meet their needs and we have services available that the other town did not, then we can argue in PPT and say, but we have effective school solutions. So we have this higher level of care. We have BCBAs within our district. So we have this extra level of service. So it could be that we could argue that even though a student comes to us from an outplacement, because of the programs and the services that we are able to provide, we might be actually able to bring that student back to district. It might take a little time, but we would be able to prove that, through a PPT and hopefully bring that student back.
Perfect. Thank you.
Sure.
Mr. Charma.
Quick question. So how much of the budget for special ed do we get reimbursed from the state? I know through open choice, if we have a student who's open choice and a special ed, right? So we get some money back. And also also in terms of title money or grant money, how much money are we gonna, is that part of the budget, or is that already out, or is that already, counted in?
So Lou, do you have those? I don't have those numbers with me. We can get you those numbers, and I think that Lou has them.
Yeah, I can speak to it. Simplest question is on the title money. There is in the vicinity of $650,000 of title money that is used to pay for the whole spectrum of hourly support staff between the paraprofessionals and any of the other codas, special summer nursing programs, all these things that occur during the year, because we have, approximately 100 people in that work classification for us every day. So it's a substantial endeavor, and that covers that part. The other funds we get from the state on grants are associated with what's called the excess cost state agency placement grant. And that grant has a 2-tier arrangement, and it's the only current year funded grant that is in Board of Ed purview through the state. So it's designed to be a circuit breaker for those catastrophic and high cost cases for students when they hit the $90,000 level up to $200,000 level. Once you meet the threshold, and it's just one time the average student cost for somebody who comes to DCF for a state placement, so $18,000 or so. Is there anything over $18,000 will come back to us in the current year. On the all of the other locally placed students, that is 4.5 times your average pupil cost. So if it's $18,000, that'll be $81,000 would be the threshold before the state kicks in, and they'll pick up around 75% of all the dollars above these thresholds. That number is capped by state statute, so it all depends on how many dollars go in the pool. It's been as low as 70%, it's been as high as about 85%, and that's an area where there's constant interest in trying to persuade the lawmakers to fully fund these issues for catastrophic cases that are out there. To create a value on that number, we are in the range of getting back about $1 million a year on the excess cost grant. And it's predominantly for our in-district students. We don't have a lot of DCF. We have somewhere between 25 and 30 students who have hit the threshold in their appropriate area. And we monitor and track that all the time. And those dollars are paid back on a schedule where there's a progress payment at the end of February and the second final payment for the end of May. So all those issues get resolved in the same fiscal year. So that's basically a circuit breaker grant for catastrophic problems to protect the districts where they're very vulnerable and they have no control over the clients and the students that come to their door.
If I could jump in, I was at a meeting yesterday where the Speaker of the House attended, and he indicated that excess cost reimbursements are likely to go up this year, which is because the state coffers are in pretty good shape. So that is good news for us. What would have been last year, perhaps a 75% reimbursement rate, may go up to 80. So that could be some very positive news. And then I don't know if you mentioned IDEA grants, Lou, but that's federal dollars that we get. Is it about 700,000?
Yeah, 650 to 700. It's all based on the formula every year.
Okay.
Thank you, Lou. Thank you, Maureen. Thanks.
Okay.
Okay, Ms. Yop.
Hi, I just supposed to have another question for Marlena. And I don't know if you can provide this. Well, obviously not tonight. Is there a breakdown of how many speech pathologists, how many RBTs, in the district, how many physical therapists? Do you have that breakdown of how many are in each school? Or are they shared?
Yeah, for the most part, they're shared, but we can absolutely get that breakdown for you.
Marilena, this is Steve Farisi. That is in the document that Dr. Brummett shared will be sent out later this evening, and the staffing documents that were shared in response to some of the Board of Ed questions that we reviewed earlier. So all those positions are in there. They're on the 3rd page of that first staffing document that you'll have access to, I believe, right after this meeting.
Thank you so much, Steve and Marilyn.
Absolutely. Yep.
All right, thank you. And Mr. Leverrier.
Yes. I'm looking at, and I apologize if this has already been addressed. I've been having internet cut in and out. So with the additional evaluators, and it's approximately $10,000 higher. How many additional, are we bringing in more people for this? What's going on with that? How's that increasing there?
So a bunch of stuff is in there, but as far as the evaluators go, one of the areas that we're working on is in the area of the dyslexia and autism. So the biggest consultants that we're working with right now that are in addition to what we have done in the past, and where the increase you're seeing is to strengthen our training and information on autism and executive functioning. And the other would be for the dyslexia, the training for the Orton Gillingham and the Wilson training.
All right, thank you very much.
Okay, and Ms. Drozd.
I have two quick questions. About how many special ed students do we have in the district? And my second question, well, that's for you, Marlena. I'll ask you first.
On the left-hand page, we're at, I believe this was our CDAC number was 648.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And the next question I think is for Lou, and I feel like I keep asking this question and I just can't get my head around it. So you said that we get 2 payments of the excess cost grant.
Correct.
So is that grant reflected in this budget where it's already deducted, or does that go somewhere else?
Yes, no, it's estimated at right around $1 million. So if you pulled it out, you instead of being at where's tuition, $4,338,000, it would be $5,338,000 with $100,000 offset to bring it back down to that number.
I think you bet $1 million offset.
Mm-hmm. I think it's 996 actually. It's close to $1 million.
Okay.
Okay, I don't see any more hands.
All right, you're off to your next topic, Ms. Julioso.
It is nursing. So major goals and descriptions. Present program, again, has remained consistent. Mercy Hetherington is our nursing administrator and has done a phenomenal job overseeing the nursing department. And we would definitely be remiss if we don't mention the additional duties and responsibilities that they nurses have taken on during COVID, and in addition to their daily responsibilities. So the usual budget, what we're really looking at in front of us, has remained pretty stable. It does look like there's an increase in supplies, which again last year I think was because we were able to again purchase some of those supplies ahead of time. We were able to offset some of the costs with the grant money as well. So the biggest increase really is in the area of the supplies. Any questions?
I'm kind of late in the game here, but nursing was the third yellow tab.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Health and nursing services.
Okay, I don't see any hands.
Yeah.
Oh, we do have one now. Ms. Yap.
Sorry. I'm just trying to look at this really quickly. So are these supplies including the COVID test that we purchased, or is that somewhere else? I know we're getting the COVID test so we can ensure students don't stay out. Is that included in this, or is that somewhere separate?
I don't believe we budgeted for any additional COVID tests next year because we have quite a supply right now. We got the free ones from, I believe they were all from the federal government. We got 2 shipments. And then I also ordered some more in this year's budget. So we're sitting pretty strong on our COVID test stash right now. I do not believe there are any more in next year's budget.
Do you think we're going to need any more, or are we not budgeting for that?
Well, if we, I think we're in really good shape right now. If we get hit with another wave, we do have some COVID relief dollars that we could probably access to pay for additional tests if there are no more free ones from the federal government. So I would say conservatively right now, boy, we probably have 4,000 tests district-wide.
Thank you.
Okay. All right.
Moving on to psychological services, which again, I think is one of the purple tabs.
Psychological is red.
Oh, it's red.
Right after the nursing.
All right. Bear with me 1 minute while I switch pages. All right. Next is psych and social work budget. So again, major goals have been tweaked over the past few years to include and keep up with the increased needs of our students. Program description has not changed, though there is a much bigger emphasis on direct instruction and social emotional learning. School psychologists and social workers are frequently the bridge between school, home, and community. School psych and social workers are active participants in SRBI, which is really our intervention process. So it's even before the students are identified. So really working with families to help them in that intervention stage. So maybe we won't get to that level where they need to be identified for 504 or special ed. They provide consultation to administration and staff as well. There are no program changes or improvements at this time, but we continue to monitor and assess the growing population of students who are exhibiting trauma and mental health challenges. So again, looking at the budget, they have a very straightforward budget. Really, the only area that they have is for their testing protocols. And we are moving to an online platform for them, which is really nice. So their WISC test that we do, the psychological testing, the old-fashioned IQ testing, that still needs to be done in person. There's blocks and things that need to be manipulated and so on and so forth. But a lot of the rating scales are being done electronically. So slowly but surely, we're going to start getting away from the paper protocols and testing materials and hopefully be able to go to subscription. So hopefully in time that those costs will go down. But that's where we are for our psychological services. Any questions?
Okay, Ms. Weaver?
I'm just curious, what was the non-cert salary, like that line? Is that, because it says 2 non-cert supports for the number of people? Just was wondering what those positions under, it's 119.
Are those the interns? Possibly? Because we do have to pay a small stipend for those.
That is correct.
Perfect. Okay. Looked like stipend numbers. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Yop?
This question I think is for Lou, if possible. Under salaries for number 2, 4, 5, 6, 10, 11, and 20, are these individual salaries or is this broken up between multiple staff members? Like certified salary 111, 181,000, certified salary 4, 158. Is that one person's salary? Or are
Yes,
these broken
there
up?
is some crossover where people have assignments in multiple buildings. So you can hang on one moment. I can give you a flavor for what that is.
Thank you.
And this is the psych program. Okay.
Yeah, it looks like it's 15.
Okay, I was actually thinking more of on the speech program, which has it. You know, we actually have all people who are full assignments at their schools. Besides the psychologists, we also have the social workers in the district. In looking at the roster right now, 8 of the 15 individuals are social workers, 7 being psychologists. So we have 1 psychologist at every building, and then 8 social workers, which are showing 2 social workers at the high school and 1 everywhere else. So the staffing is 2 at every building, plus an extra social worker at the high school.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
All right. Lastly, we will review speech and language. So I wait for you to get to your speech. I think it's under speech and hearing.
Yep, and
It's the very next tab. Yep.
All right. So again, major goals have not changed from the previous years. Our SLPs provide direct and intensive instruction in all areas of language, understanding, speaking, social communication, just to name a few. Another of the areas of their expertise includes the area of implementing and monitoring students' uses of assistive alternative communication devices, hearing aids, FMs, DMs, and feeding and swallowing, in conjunction with the school nurses and occupational therapists. SLPs are active participants, again, in the intervention teams, PBTs, and consultants to administration and staff. Program improvement and changes. We will continue to look at the growing population of students' needs, especially as we continue to add pre-K classes in the future. And as you can see from the budget, again, no major changes. Same thing happened with the supplies. We were able to purchase many of the supplies ahead of time last year. And their supplies really focus around some of the assistive technology, some of the apps that are needed for the students for their iPads, some actual replacement of iPads, and then their dues. They are looking for some membership for their ASHA, so it's so that they can get some related resources to help them within their practices.
Okay, Ms. Yap.
I just had a question, Marilena. So I'm looking at this tab that says speech and hearing services, psychological services, and special education. Why doesn't speech and language service, will speech and hearing fall under the special education since they have SLPs? Why is it separate?
So it has always been separated since I've been here. They all fall under this department. I don't know that I have the answer to that question.
Because I see it's like they have their own budget, but wouldn't this fall under special education?
It does. So it falls all under the umbrella of special education. So nursing, it's pupil personnel services, usually in many districts it's called. So it might just be parceled out. Maybe that was a request in the past. It always has fallen under a pupil personnel department. So I really don't know why it's parceled out.
Is there a paperwork reason, Lou or Karen, as to why speech has got its own section?
Speech and social
It's been that way since I came to work here, where it was always its own department. And typically it just reported to the special ed director as coordination of their assignments and the service package for the students.
Well, Lou, if I may ask Dr. Fletcher and direct this question to Lou, when we went over the special education tab, we spoke about speech language pathologists. So that's why I was just a little bit confused, because under the special education tab, there were salaries, and I thought we mentioned speech language pathologists. And then under the speech tab, there's also salaries for, I assume, speech language pathologists. That's what kind of got me confused. They're both this, I mean, and we went over how many people are in the district. So if I'm looking at the special education tab and I'm already seeing the speech language pathologist salary, why is it then listed again under speech and services and I see their salary again?
So when I had spoken about what I was doing at the beginning was I was doing the left-hand pages, and what we were talking about is special ed in general. And then I think I said, we'll talk about speech language pathology and social work and psychologists later. So they still fall under special education. Their titles fall under us, but then their budget is separate. So they are separated out. So they do not, so their salaries and their FTE positions should not be doubled. Like you shouldn't see them or repeated. They shouldn't be in special ed and in social work and SLP. We have parceled those out for you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, we'll give just another moment if anybody else has any more questions. I know last night I was hurrying a little bit too much. Some of you were writing, and I'll try to be patient. Okay, I don't see, oh, see, there we go. See, I took a test in patience and I failed. Mr. Charma, did you have a
But
question?
just a quick question on SPED. Like, can you just inform the board, Maureen, in case, like, in terms of like funding, I mean, the costs are going up, right, every year. So, I mean, if you can just maybe explain, like, in case we we get a zero budget, or what are we gonna end up? Are we gonna cut something? What are we gonna do? Because we need to we need the money, and the spend is going up every year. So I mean,
Well, I think that'll be part of our deliberations next week. If
right.
the board chooses to cut the budget, but it would be ill-advised for us to reduce special ed to any great degree, because it's so legally overseen and mandated that we would just be putting ourselves in peril, because you simply can't cut a teacher and hope for the best there, because that's on a child's IEP. But I think I would defer answering that question to next week, when we get into how are we, what are we thinking about the budget, and what are some areas that the board wants to look at. And thank you for asking that question as well, Mr. Sharma. Next week, I will present some other reductions that we're going to be able to make after, like I said, a retirement that we're not replacing, and a few other offsets that we have found in the last couple of days. So that'll reduce our budget a little more when we get into deliberations next week. So
thank you.
More to come.
Very good. Very good.
All right. Thank you for the opportunity, and have a great night, everybody.
Thank you. It was
Marlene.
good seeing you
Appreciate it.
again.
Take care, everyone.
All right. Just when you thought it couldn't get any more exciting, it's Mr. Farisi's turn.
I'm not sure about that setup, Dr. Bromet. Well, thank you so much for the opportunity to share with you Homebound Services. This is your second pink tab. So I'll give you a second to turn to that. And homebound instruction is very much as it's titled. It's when students are unable to come to school for a period beyond 3 weeks for varying reasons. It could be that due to a physician's notice or a psychiatric notice that they're unable to return to school. It could be for an expulsion, or it could be a PBT decision. For any of the multiple reasons that it could be, we are obligated to provide instruction, continuous instruction to that student. And we do it at a setting that works best for the student and the teacher. Homebound instruction is provided by our certified staff during non-work hours. So they do this outside of the work day. It is a contractually negotiated hourly rate of pay at $40.40 an hour. And over the past approximately 4 or 5 years, we've averaged around 2,100 hours a year. So we always kind of look at that trend, and we base our homebound instruction ask each year that within the trend that we see. So you're going to see a similar ask to what was appropriated this year. There is no change, and we've seen about this many hours for our homebound instruction. So we believe it's an appropriate appropriation for this area.
Okay, Ms. Weaver.
Thanks, Steve. Just a quick question about obviously averaging that. Have you seen fluctuations impacted by COVID, as well as I know particularly in Wallace, they're doing a lot more with the restorative justice practices. We're seeing less suspensions and expulsions, which is a good thing. So I'm just wondering if any of that you can attribute to, or have seen either a lessening or an increase over the past, different years.
So I think where we see a reduction in the areas you just explained, we also see a little bit of an increase in some mental health needs and students unable to return to school because of those. So right now it's kind of an equivocal balance. We haven't seen an overall reduction that would take any significant, hours off what we would expect in what we're currently seeing. So we are kind of predicting it to be the same, but a hopeful goal will be just like what you said. You know, when we can continue to provide the social emotional services that students need, and we can kind of move through the pandemic, and we do see restorative justice also working and everything working in unison, our hope would be to continuously reduce the amount of homebound instruction that's required.
Great, thank you.
Okay, Ms. Hut-Wagner.
Thank you. If a student is out for considerable length of time, and they do either have an IEP or a 504, is there a time in which that student is then possibly considered for outplacement or a different setting? Because the homebound kind of tutoring is not working and they're going to be out for a foreseeable, period of time.
Thank you for that question. Yes. So that would be something where PPT would reconvene and they would work to make that decision. So anytime it does go past any specific period of time, and generally, so 504s can go, they can range in timing depending on maybe like you could break an appendage or something could happen physically where you require some homebound instruction for a 3 to 4 week period and then return to school. So that's usually a duration that's outlined by a physician in general, or maybe a psychiatrist. When it comes to a PPT matter for receiving homebound instruction, after, anything beyond like 10 to 20 days in between that period, PPTs are reconvening and they're making those decisions ongoingly. And that's where I, always defer back to Mrs. Guglioso, because they run that process very efficiently and they keep on top of that to make sure that we're within the legal parameters of making the right decision for what's in the best interest of that student and family.
Very good. Wait a moment longer. Well, it looks like we can ease on down the road.
All right. Our next area is staff development and evaluation. And this is your fourth red tab. This area is overseen by my office, the Office of Human Capital Development. And we are wholeheartedly committed to providing outstanding service to all of our current employees, but also our future employees. We want to make sure that the Newington Public Schools is a very attractive place and destination for all candidates and vacancies that we have available. So we do everything in our power to kind of meet some very particular performance standards. And those include kind of performance excellence, making sure our staff and all employees can perform at the highest level. Strategic staffing, making sure we're putting the right people with the right talent in the right positions. Talent management and development, making sure that we're constantly then when people are in, managing that talent appropriately, but also developing it so that way we can continuously evolve to meet the needs of our students and community. And cultural, making sure that just the culture and environment in the organization is one that people want to be a part of and stay in. And we've been very fortunate because I believe we have a high retention rate, especially in our certified positions in teaching, administration, and we want to keep that going. So with that, as you turn to the budget page, you're going to see a very similar ask to in the past. Only two areas have slightly improved, and that would be the area in contracted services, the 500s. You'll see a slight increase there. That is because we have anticipate another team mentor needing to mentor a new staff member. We are responsible to pay team mentors for their mentoring service. And we have phenomenal, I know the board recognizes them every year. We have phenomenal mentors. It is a rather small stipend actually for the work that they put in and the hours that they invest in our new educators. So we will have one more of those next year, which would account for the increase that you'll see there. And then you'll see also under professional materials toward the bottom in the 800s, a very minor increase again there, and that's for a subscription for our new administrator for equity inclusion, Dr. Gerald Harrison. So that's a minor subscription for him to continue his professional growth and development and remain current through a Harvard education review letter. So other than that, we continue to anticipate the same costs to attract, recruit, retain, and develop our workforce. And that is really the essence of this program.
Okay, do we have any questions? I don't see any questions, Mr. Farisi.
Well, thank you all very much for the opportunity to explain those two programs.
Thank you.
All right, Dr. Fletcher, if you give me the green light, we will go on to our final presenter for this
Let's go.
budget season. It's Mr. Giacomowitz. He has a slew of categories that he oversees, and I will ask him to take it away.
Okay, very good.
Okay, good evening, everyone. First area will be general supplies, which is our warehousing function to support the whole district. This is primarily for all the classroom materials the teachers need, the pencils, the paper, the glue sticks, the glitter, all the other elements for their daily life in the classes that are there.
Lou, can you wait a sec so we can find the tab?
Oh, I'm sorry. It was the fourth
green
tab.
Fourth green.
My apologies.
It is third or fourth?
Fourth green.
Fourth green. Thank you very much.
Par 4.
Mm-hmm.
Par 4.
Right. So over the last 2 years, besides the taking care of all the basic supplies for teacher support, our warehouse manager has also taken on the responsibility for managing our COVID supplies and materials. So we position ourselves to where we give ourselves every opportunity for a successful situation where our staff and students can be as comfortable as possible with the type of PPE available, cleaning products to make our classroom settings as good as possible. Okay. In the financial part of the budget this year, there's a $9,075 increase requested. This emanates from the middle schools that would like to provide certain stylistic notebooks for all the kids. I believe it's like a 5-ring tab setup for them. I'm not absolutely sure of their exactly how they're going to be using it, but that request came in for both schools where they would need several replenishments during the whole school year for that. So that's really the only change there. All the other items are the same 300 or so items we deal with every year. We do have some cost pressure on paper products. We're looking at $25 a case right now, and we could be as high as $29 or more, by the end of the spring season when we lock in our prices. So we would have to tighten our belts and make some adjustments to work within our overall appropriation. No other material changes to speak of in this area other than, it's a consistent support program where we have really good forward-thinking management to be able to keep our teachers well provisioned with all the things they need every day. So, are there any questions?
Ms. Drozd.
I asked it 4 years ago. I asked it 3 years ago. I'm going to ask it again. Why can't these supplies be ordered and delivered directly to the school? And I don't know who this person is, and I don't want anyone to lose their job, but I just don't understand why we go send them to a central office and then have to pay for gas and have a truck to deliver them to the schools when they can just be delivered right to the schools.
We do that for paper products. Probably 80 to 90% of our paper is direct shipped to the schools. there's only a backup supply in case something goes wrong at a school where they can tap into an emergency resource. A lot of the other smaller products, are ordered because of the cost benefits of working through the consortiums and other buying groups that we have out there, where you wouldn't necessarily get those benefits by a member of the school staff shopping day by day for the needs of the building. So it's a balance of how we go about it, be able to take advantage of the financial incentives that are out there, but we clearly don't haul paper around the district all the time, and all those are direct shipped arrangements. And really anything that's an emergency or large bulk item would be direct shipped 80-90% of the time.
Okay, Ms. Yap.
So I have a question. I know I was a part of one of the PTA meetings, and they were saying how they had some kind of thing with Amazon. I mean, I know we all have secretaries, I think, at every school, right? And I went to school a long time ago. But to piggyback off Danielle's question, can't they have the shipments delivered maybe at, after school? I know you can pick when, and then maybe they distribute them that way so we could save money. I mean, why, again, like Danielle said, why can't you just have everything? I mean, Amazon delivers everything and you guys have an account. I know they do.
Well, without knowing what the price is, the value that we're providing for the school district, it's very difficult to say on a blanket basis that Amazon has everything that our staff wants. The buying consortiums design their bidding packages and arrangements where they have multiple suppliers available based on what is the best configuration for a school. So if Amazon, Staples, Staples, Office Max, Office Depot, whoever the big players are in the office supply market right now, submit their pricing arrangement, we will pick and choose off of the different lists. So if pencils are the cheapest at WB Mason at $1 a box, but they're $1.25 or $1.50 at the other program, we'll buy at the $1 a box. But turns around if there is glitter pens or glue sticks or whatever type of other things they're looking for, that's a better deal on Staples than at the other one. So we're constantly picking and choosing off the master list to optimize our costs, and that's where we really save the money.
That makes sense. Okay. I use WB Mason myself all the time for my home office. My other question is, now I'm a little older now, right? So when I was younger, I had to buy school supplies and bring them to school. Are the parents, is NPS buying everything? Are the parents getting lists to, maybe help? I know my son's class, they didn't give us a list, but I, as a mother, wanted to, help out the classrooms. You guys need tissue boxes, goldfish. Are the parents responsible to provide anything for their children?
I can't really speak to that because I don't know the current school operations level by level. I know in general, I would say we at least pick up 85 to 90% of all the standard items as school expense. If there's special things or special projects that the schools are looking to do, I would think those might go back to the families for some additional support. But we're never asked to participate in those sorts of activities. Our warehousing operation really provides the basics of everyday life and the more, I always call it sophisticated, but the more specialized type of items desired really have to go back to the building principals to address with their staff members.
Okay, so you're saying so you guys essentially order things for like projects or things out of the ordinary.
We do not. No, the schools would be doing that themselves, or they might be working with their PTAs.
Do you think we would save some money if we put some of the responsibility? And I don't think I'm asking anything like out of the ordinary. I'm not saying the parents have to provide all the supplies for their students, but I just know growing up, and I went to schools in the South, and we had to. We didn't have to provide everything, but my parents, packed my backpack. I had a pencil box and, markers or crayons. Maybe having the parents give something would help cut down the cost, for their children to attend school.
Okay.
Just my opinion.
Okay. Understood.
Okay, Miss Weaver.
I guess I think these are good points raised, I guess, and through the chair. I guess, Lou, I would ask, because I'm older now. I didn't go through the schools yesterday, but I know teachers still ask for supplies and we still get lists, and even in high school we were getting that, and no one gave me a notebook necessarily, but if we needed it, like they might have one. But I went to freshman year of high school with all 8 notebooks and all 8 folders, thinking I needed all of them. So I know most of the teachers and some of the PTAs have been like, here's the list. This is what some teachers need or some teachers are asking for. So I don't think that has disappeared at all. I think, Lou, my question is, like, does this cover like the copy paper, like in the high school, always
Yes.
a million copies teachers have to make, or
right.
the over, like every copy room has to have like a certain, we have this paper, we have that paper, and hopefully it's filled. I spent many days in the copy room.
And
then
different
like
colors, different sizes, all the
right. And then like, okay, so like the general, like everyone goes to the copy room. So every copy room in the district has like this is where the paper is coming from. Correct?
Correct.
Okay. So I think this is more of like the centralized, if you could describe it, would you describe it like the centralized?
Right. It's a centralized function where everybody has access to the same things.
Not just like, okay, we're like individual teachers that are like, I need this for my specific classroom.
Right. Well, there's about 300 different items on the list. And if you think like tempera paints for art, we probably have 30 different colors. So whatever the teachers are doing that year, well, we might have a run on turquoise paint this year and go through 100 of them. And next year it'll be blue, or, so there's those kind of natural ebbs and flows of what people are buying. But yeah, very straightforward list. It's paper, it's pencils, pens, it's glues, staplers, paints, paintbrush kits, for the kids, a lot of those sorts of things that are here. And they do minimal higher end stuff. Like they'll do centralized bulb replacement for some of our projectors, because we have many of the same version out there, and they'll have a stock of maybe 10 or 12 there, and that'll be drawn on if somebody burns out a bulb in their classroom. So those are really, just the efficiency of a limited list of products that is of maximum value to all the staff members.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to clarify and make sure what I'm envisioning. Like I was envisioning the copy room and an office supply closet in every school, and that's what I envisioned this budget item to be, and just wanted to make sure we're not off base there.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll wait a moment more to see if there are any more questions. Okay, it looks like it's safe to move on.
Okay, next program I will be reviewing is the Building Direction Program. It's the 4th yellow tab. This is a combination of school-based administration for the building principal, the assistants where appropriate, their secretarial staffs, and also the security functions for the entire school district. All are housed in this budget program. The request for this year is $36,000 less than the current budget. Substantial portion of the not the offset in this area, but the reason for the reduced request is last year we had purchased the visitor management system through the building direction budget, and that is, been installed in half the schools and is being installed in the rest of them shortly. And that cost to purchase will not be replicated again. It was a one-time buy. That's here. We do have some natural variation of up and down amounts in the different line items that are here. I can't speak to all of them. The only thing that really caught my eye was in the dues area, where at the high school was about $4,000 more. And in comparing it to last year's budget detail. It was for the I gotta look it up. It was for I'm sorry, I just drew a blank for a moment. Hang on a second here. The Anti-Defamation League for their No Place for Hate program, exactly what that's called, for providing the students the insight into those particular issues in the school. So that's the only major difference. Everything else is essentially the same at this point. All of the requests for the upcoming year's security improvements are all going to be directed through either the Board of Ed CIP account or the town CIP account.
Okay, do we have any questions? Okay, Ms. Rose. You're muted.
I've been so good. All right. So I don't know who this question would be, but like $8,500 for handbooks. I know a lot of districts have switched over to virtual handbooks. Just a lot of money that, I mean, seems a little wasteful. Graduation, $46,000, I assume, is for the rental. Is that all rental, or is that like rental plus gowns plus all the other happy
Would be
stuff?
the police protection security elements that are at the venue. It may include some other, not necessarily catering, but beverage service. If it's water for all the kids who are there, and exactly how it's set up for what this year's venue will be and what the style of the venue will be. At the when we go to the Oakdale all the time with an indoor arrangement, you had one set of parameters to it. Last year they went to the Yard Goats with an outdoor one. There's always
it was really hot, Mr. Jacomowitz. I was sunburned and had to convince people that I wasn't at the beach.
I unfortunately wasn't there that day, so I just heard the stories afterwards. But it was like our fingers were crossed because it was very hot and humid that day. That, we're going to get a thunderstorm. It's going to just make a mess of this day. Yep. But that didn't happen, which was great.
So that graduation line 896 is like just the cost of everything for graduation.
Everything for graduation. Right.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Okay, do we have any more questions? I'm trying to respond to somebody that wants the link to get in, so. No more questions? Okay, Mr. Jacomowitz, we can move on.
Okay. All right. The next one I'll go to will be the largest program of the evening in dollars, and that'll be the employee benefit account. And that's the 5th yellow tab for everyone.
Lou, I'm not sure if this was intentional, but you skipped over central direction.
Oh, okay. I was going on my worksheets here. You want to go central direction?
No, as long as it's on deck, we don't want to miss it all together.
No, they're all on deck.
Okay.
It's just a sequence. I have the pages in here.
No problem. I don't want to throw off your rhythm.
Okay. All right. Okay. So the employee benefit account, has all of the bargain for benefits that we're contractually obligated to provide for all of our employees. The big drivers of this are the medical dental programs through Anthem, the pension programs, both defined benefit and defined contribution through the town and through ICMA, FICA Medicare taxes we have to do, and a variety of life insurance, disability insurances that we provide that are in the foundation of different employment arrangements that different groups have. The increase this year on our preliminary from the agent of record was a 2% overall increase on the ratings for the Anthem Blue Cross program, which is excellent place to be in. You know, if we have continued good fortune, typically the contract for the succeeding year is not really finalized till April or May, depending on how everything is going. So if claims trends still hold up or improve, you know, that number has a chance to go a bit lower for us. But everything still as of today is just an estimate. It's not locked in solid where I can, or the town manager or Dr. Brown can sign the agreement that says here's the number for next year yet. But we're very close. You know, we're doing very well. The actual claims trends for this year are positive. There is no dramatic developments that would put the plan in peril for going over the estimates where we're tapping into the town's health insurance reserve at this point. There are no runaway claims that are going to drive a tremendous increase down the road. So everything's been very stable and performing well. There's just no other description. You know, I mean, as a group of about 600 contracts overall between ourselves and the town, and we're close to 80% of the overall pool. That's a little small for true rate stability, where you know, where statistically something will happen, which somebody will have an expensive case at some point, and the bigger your pool, the more stable all the results are. So we do have the, I wouldn't call it risk. We have the opportunity to be a little more volatile because we're not the biggest group around, but overall, you know, our employees behave very responsibly. Everybody does a good job, and the results show it because we're always able to turn a credit by the end of the year where we're beating the number that's been budgeted for the program for the year. As of right now, there are no changes anticipated from bargaining unit negotiations to the actual structure of any of the benefit programs right now. The only things that really are up for grabs on negotiations are the level of deductible funding for the high deductible plan and whatever the employee copay would be. It's kind of like what the variables are in that area right now. Okay. In the pension plans, the dominant portion of our staff members are members of TRB, which is not a cost we have to budget for. So that does not appear in our program budget costs. We do pay for all of the classified staff through the 2930 pension program. That's a defined benefit. A number of individuals who have been hired in the last 10 to 15 years now are in the ICMA defined contribution program instead of the town pension plans because they were closed to new employees as of dates going back 10, 15 years now. So every year, more and more individuals are in the defined contribution than the defined benefit plan. And that's been a long-term strategy of the town, and they've been able to fulfill that to manage long-term obligations for pensions. So that's worked out very well for everybody. Yeah, the FICA and Medicare are statutory costs that we have to pay. Teachers only pay Medicare, where all non-TRB employees pay both FICA and Medicare. You know, the levels that are taxable just go up for next year. FICA is going to be at 147,000 taxable, up from about 140 last year. So this is the typical bracket creep that we get every year. So as of right now, the overall proposal, not everything is finalized. I think we have a little room to come down as the final confirmations come in for the different areas of the program. But we're in reasonably good shape here, you know, going into next year for this particular budget. And the overall increase was $520,000 at this point, which on a $14 million budget is you know, around 2.5% to 3% overall at this point.
I just have to chime in as having come from a district where there were years where we had substantial health insurance increases. I've been very pleased with these minimal increases in Newington. Lou, can you confirm at the budget number that you ultimately have to put here is sent to you from our agent of record, correct?
That's correct. Right.
Okay.
Yeah. Right, and roughly of the 500,000, as of right now, a little bit over 300,000 is for the medical insurance. The other 200,000 is for everything else.
All right. Do we have any questions from the board? Okay, Mr. Charma.
Quick question, Lou. So the rebate that you get back from, is it from Blue Cross? So the money that you get back, right? Where does that money go? Does that go into CIP, or does that offset like the current budget, or what happens to it?
Yeah, each year the plan is reconciled at the completion of the fiscal year. So we're on a July to June basis. So that reconciliation has to be presented back to the town and the Board of Education during the month of September. At that point, they settle up all the, irregularities, any questions or, issues with the plan at that point. And if we have paid in more than what we've paid out for our portion of the plan, we will be entitled to a rebate, and we're typically notified right around October 1st of what that amount is. There's a number of components that go into that calculation. At that point, that credit is then utilized where we can reduce our benefits payments to the town for this year's Blue Cross and reallocate that to whatever expenses that the board desires us to pursue, or in conjunction with Dr. Brummett, or planning for best use of the money, or addressing significant needs of the district. And that cycle repeats each year in the same fashion.
So that money stays with the district, or you turn it over to the town, or what happens to it?
Well, we've paid it into the health benefit fund.
Okay.
So now let's just say that when this coming September, we're entitled to $100,000 of a credit because we paid in $100,000 more than we paid out. We will get a notice from a town finance director that says you can cut back your contributions this year into the health benefit fund. And then that creates a budget surplus in benefits that can either be spent on benefits or reallocated to whatever other needs there are around the district.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks a lot. Thanks.
Okay. Next up, Mr. Branda.
Thank you, Dr. Fletcher. Lou, I think I know the answer to this. I just want to make sure. Do our paras receive health benefits?
Do our parents?
The paras.
Paraeducators. No, they don't.
And just, again, this might be a long-term thing. What kind of, roughly, how much would that add into this line item if we considered that in the future?
Well, I'm going to take the whole collection of academic support people in the response. So between paraprofessionals, regular tutors for the district, CODAs, and other assisters we have roughly 150 to 160 employees in this category. If we were to be able to provide medical insurance for them that meets the minimum ACA standards, you would have something along the lines of a $10,000 a year policy with a pretty high deductible associated with it. That would cost, we'd be limited to being able to charge the employee 9.5% towards that. So roughly the employee would have to pay in $1,000 of premium cost sharing. They may have a $5,000 to $7,500 deductible that they have to get through before their benefits actually kick in. And that would cost us in the vicinity of $10,000 for every individual employee contract. When you add 2-person or family to that, you're 2 times or 2.5 times the cost of single coverage.
Okay, thank you.
Your question?
So would the grand total though be?
Oh, the grand total. Right, you'd be somewhere 1.8 million for just providing single coverage for everybody. 2.5 million or higher with offering spouse and family coverage.
Okay. Perfect.
Somewhere
Thank
that's
you.
in the- Okay.
Thank you. Ms. Yop?
So I have two questions, Dr. Fletcher-Falou. Number one, what's the turnover rate for paras in our district?
I can guess, and my number would be pretty high, but I'll turn that question over to Steve because he would have a much more definitive idea of what that number is.
Well, pretty high is accurate. We have been turning over tutors as quickly as we hire them. So our rate is literally right now in the past probably 3 years, 50-50 retention turnover rate. It's very low right now.
Okay. And my other question is, and it's to benchmark off Branda. So my son, works with a para and he has speech issues. So do you think if you offered health benefits to the paras, there would be less of a turnover rate? Because I'd be incentivized as a para to stay at my job if I got some sort of benefits, as opposed to just getting maybe just the salary with no PTO and no benefits. I mean, what is incentivizing them to stay here if they're not getting anything? I mean, we have some pretty good paras.
That would greatly improve retention.
So do you think that's something you should look into and maybe try to offer? So
We're
that would
trying
not
to
only
find ways to accomplish that.
Well,
but we haven't been successful yet.
The reason why I'm asking is, and I'm just going to make my statement. I'm just going to use my own child as an example. If my child has a para that he's used to, his scores are improving, we have a math issue with our math and reading, and then the para leaves only because she's not being offered any benefits, then maybe we should look at offering something. So therefore the children are used to working with these people. We know this is a good employee, and maybe they wouldn't leave if they had, PTO, some kind of health insurance. And then the children, work with these paras and they're used to them, and these paras are trained and they know the environment. I mean, I think we should offer this. I mean, I've never had a job without benefits, but I think they should have something. Including PTO as well.
No, understood. These are challenges we have to face and balance in making decisions in the district these days.
Yeah, we don't disagree with that at all, Ms. Yop. We do offer paid time off. I believe we've instituted that very recently. But the big challenge is benefits, and as Lou stated, to provide wholesale benefits to all of that classification would be several $1 million. So that is our challenge, not our desire to provide that to our very hardworking folks, but the actual upfront foray into that would be a huge increase in the board's budget.
My last question is, do other towns offer their paras benefits?
Yes, they do.
Yes.
And is their retention rate the same?
Surprisingly, having come from a district where the paras and tutors have benefits, they still have a fair amount of turnover because it is more of an entry-level position. But I would have to say that it would certainly lower ours. It wouldn't eliminate it, but I think we would see some improvement.
Sounds like a plan.
Don't disagree. We just have to figure out how to afford it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Charma. You're muted, Mr. Charma.
I support basically working on something where we could offer some benefits to the paras, just like Ms. Yop said. It's a wonderful idea. So let's work on it, and hopefully we'll get some funding on it.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Branda.
Well, I'm glad I brought it up, but I just have this question. Mr. Farisi, you mentioned kind of 50-50. Are we seeing it lower in our retention rate lower during COVID times, or is that where we've been at even prior to all of this chaos?
No, it's been exacerbated by COVID. It's more fluid now than ever before in the past 2 years. So I would be able to definitively say that for certain. Previous to that, we had higher levels of retention, but right now has been the most challenging.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. We'll wait a moment more if anyone else has another question. Okay, looks like we can move on.
Okay. The next program I'm going to be going to is general insurance. That is the 5th green tab.
Is it the one that just says insurance, not
Yes,
general?
right.
Okay.
Right. And this is all the liability insurances for the town. So this is the auto insurance, property insurance, general liability insurances for covering all risks associated with both board and town operations. This is through the town standing insurance committee. So they have members that participate who are knowledgeable in the industry, that are familiar with the products and the strategies for how to maximize coverage while minimizing the costs. In the things that are board specific, we have the universal liability plan. There's also a workman's comp program that's here on what they call a retrospective arrangement. Then we have a number and property insurance for just damage to our buildings, our vehicles, things like that. And then we have specialized cyber insurance liability, professional liability, crime policies. We have insurance for our booster clubs, and as well as we offer that is not at our cost, but we provide it for families where there's that school day program for students where if the families are not inclined to just rely on their own insurance for maybe it's a high deductible plan or not, or somewhere between $25 to $50 a year, you can get school day coverage, which is really for any injuries, issues that happened while the student is participating in school. That's available. And there's also the athletic insurance policy for all of our sporting teams that are out there. So this year, in working with Jeff Barron from the town, who's my counterpart in budgeting and working with this, the retro program appears to be needing a 4% increase this year. That is strictly generated based on what our claims history is. It has no impact on claims that are rated for others. So the way the program was set up by the town is, we incur all of our claims costs ourselves. So what occurs every year, they have a look back in the prior couple of years of activity. And if the claims are growing, additional money has to be put up for that to cover the payments that are needed. And that money will come out of the town's insurance reserve. They're trying to balance the upfront payments that are made into the fund by both town and the board, and the insurance reserve is the backup plan for paying deductibles and any retro charges on their programs. So, any specific questions on this?
Yeah, I don't see any hands being raised. Oh, Mr. Charma.
Quick question, Lou. So does the district buy? Do you buy a policy yourself, or do you go to the town? I mean, who negotiates the prices?
Well, the town has an agent, just similar to what our agent of record is for health benefits. They also have one for liability insurances. That agent is responsible for the liability insurance pool, workman's comp, and property. We then also go out and buy other specialized policies which may relate to the Board of Ed or the town. So we have the assistance of the broker helping us to put that placement package together. All of the big programs right now are insured through CIRMA, which is the statewide insurance pool for municipalities, boards of ed, and any other government entities. and they do a terrific job of keeping it up. They also manage what's called the excess liability program. And Newington has chosen to carry a $25 million policy in this area because, you know, we have the school buses, we have some potential for larger losses that are there. So what the town does is builds different layers of insurance. So insurance company number one covers from $0 to $2 million. Company number two picks up at $2,001 and goes to $7 million. And they just keep stacking those up in the liability to get to the target number they want. This way, they're not putting all of their liability risk with one carrier who may be very volatile on pricing. This way, they're managing the marketplace where the best deals are for the different layers of coverage. So it's a really solid program. It's been done that way since I've been here, which is 29th year right now.
All right, thanks, Lou.
Any other questions? Okay, for the sake of time, we'll move on to the next item.
Okay, now we're going to go back to central direction, which is the fourth blue tab. So this is the management account for the district for Dr. Brummett and the staff for central office. And it really covers the superintendent activities, all of the human resources, HCD operations, the finance department, business office, the curriculum area. That's there are the four primary parts of this. So these are for all the staff that supports the operations for the whole school district for these four areas. Of the budget request, it has a decrease proposed of a little over $16,000. Nothing dramatic as far as what's changed. You know, we've shaved a little bit of money on public relations and postage and other things to bring the amount down. The nature of what we've been doing has been consistent year after year, and the always striving for doing things a better way, and you know, taking advantage of the resources we have available to provide, you know, excellent support to all of the other schools and staffs throughout the school district. Are there any questions here?
Okay, Ms. Weaver.
Just curious, it says that in the 599 contracted services, there's a decrease, and it says cut for contracted paraprofessionals. Is that a wash
Right.
going into others?
No, what you have is there was an error of an entry that went in at the preliminary for this year that was taken out, and that's what it was about. So it has no effect. It shouldn't have been there in the first place. We just missed it in our first review.
All good, thank you.
Okay. I don't see any other hands, so you have another item.
Okay, moving on. Next one is the Board of Education account, which is the fourth purple tab. And this is your account as the members of the Board of Ed. You know, in this program, you pick up legal fees for negotiations, special ed, other issues that need legal support for the board. That's here. We pay for the SRO to the town, which is about $125,000, which is budgeted here. We have memberships in various board-related organizations, CABE, CAPS, not CAPS, it was the CABE, PreK, National School Board Association, District Management Group, that we belong to for the benefit of everyone. In addition, this is also the location of where we would budget the net magnet school tuition that's due to the various schools that are out there based on where our kids are placed. That number has gone down substantially. We were able to cut that $250,000 because of the additional revenues we're getting through the front end benefit of the open choice program. So we've been able to reinvest that into the being able to reduce the budget request at this point. Everything else is the same as it has been for a number of years, other than that beneficial change for the tuition. Are there any questions?
Okay, doesn't look like we have any questions.
Okay, all right. Next program will be the maintenance program, which is the fourth pink tab. The next one past Board of Ed in the book. Right. The maintenance program takes care of the repair needs around the school district. We're staffed with 5 tradesmen that are here. There's 1 HVAC tech, 1 electrician, and 3 general maintainers. One of the 3 general maintainers is a specialist in keying and locksmithing. So if you think we have a few hundred doors around the district that are in need of attention now and then because they're not operating correctly, he's the in-house expert in that area. And the other tradesmen deal with just a variety of stuff every day of, repairs and, just things that are not mechanically working correctly. And, they're out everywhere during the course of their workday. We also have a facilities director who is responsible for both the maintenance program and the custodial program, which is titled Plant Operations. There are 38 custodians in that program, so he has a total workforce of 43 to service the whole district. Some of the greater needs of the program, looking forward, is moving further to the digital age of converting equipment we have from old style pneumatic systems to digital energy management systems. And we've been making inroads in those areas over the last 7 or 8 years. We're not where we want to be yet, but we have made good progress in these areas. So that allows a centralized computer brain to be able to program the comfort level and temperature classroom by classroom that's there, as well as identify when something goes out of compliance and either it's too cold, too hot, or alarming occurs, which says something's wrong. So these are very valuable elements to being able to manage the buildings every day. In the budget request, you have 3 key areas. One is the repair account. The second one is purchase services or contract services, and then supplies. The supply area is strictly for the supplies our guys buy to do work on their own. So if they need to go down to Home Depot and buy 50 pounds of nails, or they need to, buy, 100 2x4s to rebuild something, that's where that part of the cost goes. The purchase services area or service contracts we have for probably 40 different things. These are on the fire alarm system, sprinkler systems, energy management program that we have. Just look at my list a little bit here. Yeah, engineering services, architect services, various softwares for the district are here. Landscaping services, the environmental work by our consultant for both testing and health and safety matters for the district. Managing the swimming pool with the aquatics that are there. And the security elements of all the intruder detection systems and the service contracts we have on all of those devices around the district. So that's a little cross section of the things that are going through there. The 400 account, the property account, is for repairs where we typically need to bring in others. because it's beyond our specialization or scope of capacity. These repairs, can cover the gamut of HVAC. It deals with general building construction, door replacements, windows, anything you can think of that goes wrong, roofs, anything that goes wrong can and has gone wrong, we will address through this. So those are the basic framework of what the program is, and I'm more than happy to answer any questions I can.
Okay, first up, Mr. Branda.
Thank you, Dr. Fletcher. I have a few quick questions. Luke, can you just remind me, because I know the repairs are the priority ones, correct?
Correct.
That are in, so how many levels of priority are there again?
We have 3 that we use here. And when the budget goes in, we would, sometimes all 3 levels would get in, sometimes 1 and 2, or sometimes just 1 and part of number 2. It all is based on the circumstances and really how needy the issue is we're trying to deal with. Right now, what you have in is just level 1.
Right. I see that on the last page there. So this has been an issue that I think this town has, we continue to kick the repair can down the road in all things. And I just quick math, it looks like there's $950,000 worth of repairs that were initially requested versus what we're putting in the budget. And I fully understand why, but I'd be curious the breakdown of just what would it look like with priority 2 in there. And I'm only saying that because I feel like I've been on the board now. This is my 5th budget. And I feel like this is always the same thing where we have to put off repairs. And then, as everybody probably knows, you put off repairs, you have more repairs to do. So I'm just curious what that would look like, since the initial request was so much that kind of it worries me a little bit.
Okay. So items we have as possibilities here are additional roof work. We don't have any commitment for funding or additional roof activity going down the road at this point. We'll see how all that shakes out in the budget. But at the high school specifically, we have a 1984 vintage roof, which is going on 38 years old. We took care of 2 targeted areas last year over the art room and then the STEM Academy area that's there. That was about 17,000 square feet of space for about $400,000 to do that. So we're low $20 a square foot for that work. We have somewhere around 100,000 square feet left to go in the different areas of buildings. We have nothing that's in imminent danger of having a chronic or real problematic situation right now, but it doesn't take long for that to start up. We're fighting time in this area, and as a 38-year-old roof, it should be on the list of getting done. The totality of what we had provided to the town manager in our CIP package was showing that this was going to be about $2.7 million to do all the roofing work that's necessary around the district. If we're in a spot where we have to just do targeted work to buy time, or have to deal with a circumstantial leak where we have to put $20,000 into the roof in this area, we have to be able to have some of those resources. So part of that, it ebbs and flows. If we have significant support from the town manager on the roof request, that obviously can relax because something will be getting done. We won't need to have quite as much of a cushion that's there.
And really quick, because I see Richard's got a question too. Building 20 in the coding, remind me which one is building 20?
That's the high school.
It is the high school, because that has a huge gap between the initial request and the current. So that's roofing mostly, right? Is that?
Correct. Okay. That's what we would recommend.
Okay. Thank you.
The other major thing around the district is in the area of ventilation and HVAC. With the rules that they established for the pandemic, where you now need to run ventilation in selected areas 7x24 or on a 16-hour schedule. This differs a lot from 3 years ago, where you could run ventilation 8 to 10 hours a day and that's it. So there's a lot more wear and tear on the equipment. motors burning out, belts breaking or seizing up, that is taking more and more of our time and effort and money to rectify these issues. So we're seeing that more as an emerging thing over the last year that's here. So that would be where we would put our money, in a complementary fashion with the roofing needs of the district. And then certainly, as air conditioning equipment ages out, it doesn't have a 50-year lifespan, and maybe you can get 30 out of it. But those things will have to be addressed down the road.
Okay, very good. So we have a question from Mr. Leverrier.
Yes.
Yes, thank you. So I'm trying to figure out that the $836,750 for contracted services, that's in addition to what was done in the CIP, is that correct?
Yes, right. This has nothing to do with the CIP proposal. They're complementary parts.
Okay. And because the 599 code varies for each facility, I mean, the numbers are kind of like, there's a wide range there. Is that is that having to do with what you were speaking about earlier with the roofs, or what are the other services
It could be
various properties, please?
Right. Yeah. Looking at things that have a substantial impact. All right. So just looking at the other schools, our roofing over at John Wallace is in pretty good shape. That's 2010, 2011 vintage, so only 12 years old for the newer spots. We still have a couple of older areas where we have to keep an eye on it. We have the same issue over at John Patterson that's there, as well as the bus garage. Some of the other things, depending on which year it is, I can see there's sidewalk work that they would like to get done at Wallace. I also know that their parking lot over by the basketball courts and the Little League diamond that's there is getting in rough shape, and that needs to be reworked. So, and they also want to do new pathways for student access to the wings to facilitate how they're managing student departures and coming in the mornings, as far as how their new reality is at the school. So we are always trying to keep up on these things, and not everything will happen. Some of them are going to always be superseded by emergencies. So if we had a $30,000 item for, we were going to redo sidewalk that's getting a little, spalled and beat up at one of the schools, and then we have a failure of a air conditioning unit or a compressor or chiller. Well, the $30,000 would go to the chiller because the system's down, and the other issue would wait. We don't have the long-term financial commitments to build a plan that has a script that's done every year. We have to recognize that a good portion of the budget has to be nimble and has to respond to problems that occur at that time. That whatever the good intentions were on a planning basis will have to be superseded at that point.
Fair enough. Okay, yeah, because I was confused because I like a lot of those things were stuff that was covered in the CIP, but I do know I get what you're saying about the emergency situations and that. But that's all I have. Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Okay, Ms. Yap.
So in regards to what Richard said, so I get it. So some stuff is for emergencies, some not. So why is it under two different things? Why is it under budget and why isn't it just one thing? Why is it separated?
Well, the Board of Education operating budget does not have the stipulation that it has to be an item that qualifies as capital. So anything that goes over to the board CIP account has to meet the basic standard of $15,000 in value, 7-year useful life. A number of things that are done in the maintenance area, you can't make that promise on. That if you're going to paint some space, or if you're going to do a $1,000 repair of something, you have to replace a pump in the boiler room someplace for $1,000. So the larger dollar items will gravitate toward the board CIP account. And in trying to anticipate where we think our problems and issues would be for the year, kind of guides us to try to build a complementary plan between what we put in the board CIP account and what stays in our local operating budget. And then it's obviously predicated on the funding level that comes through during the budget process.
Okay, so you're saying basically with the $2 million plus that this should be enough to cover all the emergency situations?
Well, it's also routine things that are done. You know, there's a number of work activities that just need to happen. If you have damaged hardware on the doors that, you know, the crash bar or the push pad is not working properly and you have to replace it, that would be just a routine maintenance item. It wouldn't be really something that qualifies as a new capital type item that's there. So the definitions of what we're trying to do drive where the money will necessarily go. Like a lot of times in the board CIP account, you know, the traditional large ticket items of HVAC items, security system items, technology items, and vehicles could be the dominant items that are processed or money is provided for that's in there. We also will do certain projects going through there where it's kind of an all-inclusive that the project value is low enough where we can handle it through the board CIP account, and that will be its own line item. With the paving work that's done, we do that in collaboration with the town highway department. So we transfer resources from our board CIP account to give them access to what they need in order to do the work for us. So these are kind of how the management and the mechanics of the fund work there, where anything and everything can go through the board operating budget.
Thank you. I have one last thing to ask, if that's okay. So just so I can ensure we're, you know, utilizing our funds in the most efficient way, are you using some of the maintenance workers that may have these skills to perform some of these tasks, or are you contracting them elsewhere? Because in just reviewing union contract, I saw that maintenance workers can perform miscellaneous tasks. So are we utilizing these maintenance workers who may have these skills or trades?
Oh, absolutely. The reality is the jobs are more than 1.0. We have collaboration of a series of contractors who work with us under town contracts that basically fill the gaps that our guys can't get to. And this is what they call a shared work doctrine, which is perfectly acceptable at the union environment, where, you know, it's not practical to staff positions to a level that are beyond what your daily needs are. So if our needs are like we really need a 1.4 HVAC tech and we have a 1.0 tech, we will be picking up additional resources from contractors to fill in and create the right complementary arrangement. So our in-house guy can maximize his time and skills, and we rely on the outsider to do other work for us.
And is he vetting the contractors that he's using, or is he just using someone usually are they looking at different options just to ensure we're making the most cost-effective decision in regards to who we contract with on the outside?
Well, the type of work will dictate who we use as the complementary person. In the HVAC area, you can have someone on our complementary group who is an expert in boiler systems. You have somebody else who's an expert in air conditioning systems, and somebody else who is an expert at the controls to make those systems work. So depending on what the work is will dictate who we need to bring in and what kind of combination. So all of these companies have been vetted and have won, bids for working for the town in this complementary fashion. For most of them, not everybody. We do have a few of them that there's not enough activity to warrant bidding it, but all our key contractors are on that program.
Thank you.
Okay, so I'm going to hit the pause button for a moment here. Dr. Brummett, if you could give me an idea how many more things we have that we need to cover.
Yes, I believe we have 4 more sections from Lou's, and that is it. Those are the last 4.
Okay, and I'm going to ask probably not a popular question, but how much time do you think you're going to need for those 4? Because I want to keep in mind we've been 3 hours already here.
Maybe 20 minutes. I'll talk less.
I would almost be inclined to pause here and pick this up Wednesday night and then go into our deliberations following that, because we've had so many things come at us tonight that it just might not be conducive for us to continue at this point. I don't know if anybody would object to that.
I'm fine.
That's fine.
I agree, Dr. Fletcher.
I would just ask Dr. Fletcher if the board has any questions after they've had a chance to review these documents in more depth and with some of the details shared this evening, that they would send questions to you as they did last night so that we can come prepared to hit the ground running on Wednesday.
Mm-hmm. I think that would be good. Ms. Weaver?
Yeah, I was just gonna say if we could list the 4 sections, it should be like plan operations. I think like community services is 2. Just list the 4 in case so that members can email regarding those specific sections, not limited to obviously, but if there's questions in advance,
so
that might be helpful.
Do you want me to list the ones that have not yet been covered?
Correct,
Ms. Weaver?
correct.
So Board of Ed has not, did we cover Board of Ed, Lou?
Yes, we did.
Yes. Yeah, you have plant operations, community service, other salaries, and the 4th one is
Transportation?
transportation. Right.
Okay. I appreciate everybody indulging me with that. This is a very long process, and we want to make sure that we're sharp as we go through it all. So at this time, I am going to move us on to agenda item D, which is public participation on any matter related to board responsibilities. Civil participation is limited to 3 minutes. We ask you to state your name and the street that you reside on. And also a reminder, we don't necessarily answer questions as they are asked or comment as well. We will get back to you as soon as possible. So with that said, we have Dana Havens.
Hi, Dana Havens, Stoddard Avenue. I just have a little point of clarification for you guys. The supplies, the classroom supplies that we used to get a list of every year, we do not get that anymore in 2017. Dr. Collins said that it was the school's responsibility to provide all learning supplies, and that's when that started. Also, handbooks. I heard you guys mention handbooks. Now, my kids haven't gotten a hard copy of a handbook in years. We've always read it electronically for the past, I don't know how many years now. So I'm just a little, I guess that's not a clarification. I'm just confused about it. And
Okay, well, thank you very much. Do we have anyone else from the public that wishes to speak at this time? Okay, I don't see any hands being raised, so I'm going to move on to item E, which would be remarks by board members. If there are any board members that would like to make a remark or ask another question, you can do so at this time. And seeing none, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion's made and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Right.
Okay, meeting is adjourned. Thank you all very much.
Dr. Fletcher, just want to confirm, it's just next Wednesday we have, correct?
Correct.
No Tuesday meetings, everyone.
No, Wednesday night, 7 o'clock.
Good night, everyone. Take care.
Good night. Thank you all.
And Dr. Fletcher, I'm going to
Yes.
assume that we're going to not have a presentation next week. We're going to focus strictly on the budget.
We'll be strictly with the budget.
Okay, very good. I'll make that amendment to the agenda.
Thank you very much.